Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 8th work session of the Village of Board of Trustees. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we have another full agenda this evening, but we'll begin with announcements. It certainly is spring. It doesn't feel like it at the moment, but this Saturday kicks off parade season here in Ossining, although a couple of us were at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in our neighboring communities. It'll be the hopefully the first day of JCYS baseball, so that's the nice early morning parade that begins at Roosevelt at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. And then we have so many things that'll be happening throughout the spring. Everybody's tired of being trapped inside the house, so I know your calendars are already full, and I just want to give you a few reminders of things that are coming up in this month of April. Saturday, April 18th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. At the Lewis Engel Waterfront Park is Green Ossining's Earth Day. There's going to be live music all day. There's exhibits, there's activities, there's food. It's going to be a really fun day, so I hope you'll join us. That's Saturday the 18th at Waterfront Park from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And 2 days before that, you can start getting in your Earth Day frame of mind with the April offering from the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series. It's Solutions refers to an online series that is some environmental activists from Westchester who travel around the world, and they do these segments about innovations that are helping people in other parts of the world to live more sustainably. And so we're going to watch some segments of that. And then what's a really exciting twist this month is a little different than our usual panel discussion. We've got 5 different folks from Ossining and the area who are also doing their own innovative, environmentally progressive projects. And we're going to learn from them. They're going to give us quick presentations. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you'll join us. That will be on Thursday, April 16th at 6:30 p.m. at the Ossining Public Library in the Bedars Theater. I know there's a bunch more things going on that I don't have in front of me, so I'm going to open it up to any other trustees who would like to share any news.
I got nothing.
Really?
No, I do.
Well, we have some very exciting news here in the village, but if you have just calendar updates,
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll share it today.
All right.
Good evening. So I will be relaunching a virtual office hours beginning April 22nd. All you have to do is schedule an appointment on Skype or on Facebook. That's Trustee Omar Herrera. And I will be here at Village Hall on April 16th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in case you want to meet me in person. And if none of those dates can fit into your schedule, you could always email me at herrera@villageofossining.org. And also, the County Board of Legislators is hosting a Families Task Force event, basically asking families and residents how to do what they're calling a Bill of Rights for families based off of needs. As you see throughout the county and state, and even here locally in Ossining, many child care providers and services have been trying to get the funding that they need to help parents keep their children in daycare, and also to make sure that we're able to, from a local level to a county level and state level, be able to provide all services that families do need in any socioeconomic background that they come from. And I encourage all of you to call 914-995-2800 for more information about upcoming events, and tomorrow evening, they'll be hosting an event at the Greenberg Public Library at 7 p.m. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody about some arts events that are coming up. In the performing arts, the Words and Music series is going to have their next concert on April 26th at 2 p.m. at the Bedars Theater. Jeff Slate and his all-star band will be playing. It's singer-songwriter Annie Minogue, who also joined the band for songs as a special guest appearance. The doors open at 1:30. It's a free concert, so I encourage you to come early so you can have a good seat. And then I have another announcement that I wanted to mention about the Westchester Collaborative Theater. They're going to do their first production on May 22nd and 23rd, also at the Boudars Theater. Tickets are going on sale next week. And if you're interested, you can find out more at wctheater.org. That's www. So it's westchestercollaborativetheater.org. And the tickets are $10, and they need to be ordered in advance. Very excited about the Collaborative Theater. For those of you who don't know, they do only original works, and they're going to be doing a couple of readings this spring, and then they're going to do a full production in the fall. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Manuel, did you have
Actually,
anything?
I just found something.
Oh, yeah, that's a
I
big one.
forgot.
Yeah, please share.
Yes, the Ossining Matters is having a fundraiser, and it's really exciting. They're doing Mardi Gras in Ossining. It's Saturday, May 2nd at 6:30, and it's the Jambalaya Brass Band. So you're going to get to hear some Cajun music, and that's at the Ossining High School Auditorium. There'll also be a reception and an auction immediately following in the Ossining Public Library. So there's a couple of events. It's pretty exciting. Ossining Matters is a not-for-profit education foundation, and it supports and enriches the learning opportunities for children in the school district. They fund projects that are beyond the scope of the school budget. They do extraordinary work, cultural things, health programs. They support the athletics programs. In fact, they've donated over $825,000 to the Ossining School District since their inception. So it's a really good organization to come out and support. And if you're going to miss being in New Orleans this year, you get to have a little bit of it here in Ossining.
I have nothing.
Well, I just also want to say thank you to Christina Papes. She's now completed 1 week and 1 day in her role as interim manager, and she started at 9 a.m. on her first day with the fire, and I know it's been an exciting week ever since. So thank you very much. Christina is, as everybody knows, an incredibly experienced, usually our assistant village manager, and has again stepped up into interim village manager to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So thank you for that. And so just yesterday morning that yesterday morning we made the official announcement that Abe Zambrano is going to be joining us as the next village manager at the end of May 27th. Abe is currently the village manager in the village of Croton, and it was a very comprehensive and efficient search, and I know that I think I can speak for all of the board that it was a wonderful experience to get to meet so many terrific managers in the area, and we were thrilled to all have consensus and enthusiastically look forward to this new leadership and management in the village. And I wrote some remarks there on my website. I should probably put them up on the village website on my page there, just really welcoming Abe, but yeah, we're looking forward to that, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. The first item on tonight's agenda is actually a project spearheaded by Trustee Codman. We have the gentleman from Bright Home Energy Solutions here to join us, Clifford Munns, Yoichi Chiba. Okay. And of course, Mike Brown is a little easier. But I don't know if Trustee,
Sure,
you want
I'll
to
kind
start the
of
conversation?
open things up. We're going to get some information tonight about Bright Home and their energy audit process and their methodology. We'll get a little bit of a taste here of some of the really simple things that we can do to really create short and long-term savings for us around energy use. They did a comprehensive energy audit of multiple buildings within the village. I'm very excited about tonight's presentation. It's going to take you through their methodology and really help us all understand the granular elements that go into this kind of a study. It's very, very comprehensive, literally down to the light fixtures. And there are some things that we can do where the payback is, less than 2 years. And once you get beyond that cost savings there, you're making money right on top of that. I mean, you're taking money right off the table for our energy expenses. And so I'm really excited about the presentation, and I'll turn it over to Clifford and his team to make the presentation. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Codman. We been friends for a while. Tom says hi.
No,
And
no,
to
you can't
Miss
say
Dixon.
that.
Yeah, anyway, my name's Mike Brown. I'm the president of Bright Home. My brother and I founded the company in 2009. I like to tell the story that it's also the first time that he and I actually got to know each other. I'm the oldest of 11 kids. He's number 10. So he only knows me as somebody who lives somewhere else and was married. And so now we've had a nice run of 5 years with each other, and that's been a real pleasure. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the village. We started out as residential people, and we became more commercial in the last couple of years. In those 2 years, I brought on 2 people who really knew that part of the business and helped us grow it, and really can be of great help. Clifford Munns is an architect, registered architect. He's been with us now for a little over a year. And Yoichi Chiba was the first person we brought in on the commercial side, who's been a real pleasure for us. The only last thing I want to say as a person from Bright Home is we're also going to be putting the arm on you guys for just help. We're doing a great project with IFCA here in this community. We probably going to put together about a $500,000 project with them. And the state of New York, from 3 or 4 different funding sources that I've gathered up, will probably contribute about $300,000 of it. So it's going to be a big change for their facilities. They'll probably save a little over $75,000 a year, which is going to close any budget gap they've ever had and allow them to grow. So when I'm with them, I boast about some of the stuff you guys are starting to do, and whenever I'm going to see somebody else, I boast about them. Every time I hear from John, I tell him about IFCA. So I think the village of Austin has some great things going on, and we love this city, actually, or this village. Thanks. I'll turn it over to Cliff, who's done all the heavy lifting.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. My name is Clifford Munns, and yes, I'm an architect. I came on to Bright Homes a little over a year ago. And I'm also directing the commercial division for the work that we're doing. As you well know, we do both residential and commercial work. One of the nice things, at least, I guess being an architect, is you kind of talk a lot, and but you listen better. And that's what I had done with trustee, and we tried to respond. What we can do in a matter of just a few minutes, actually, is was very comprehensive, which is pages and pages and pages of data and work and such like that. We're going to make it very easy. Okay. Next slide, would you please? You can use the mouse. It'll work well.
Should I turn the lights on?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Is it okay like it is?
Sure, sure.
Well, the perimeter, maybe? Is it the perimeter lights that are, there we go.
Thank you, thank you. As a matter of fact, we've been in this building as well, and we've noticed you've got lovely LEDs running all around the place. The charge we were given was to look at, believe it or not, was about 11 different sites. And they just went across the entire spectrum of buildings. We're not only from the age of the building, but the type, use, style, didn't matter what it was. And believe it or not, it was a great opportunity. When you get to do something in such a vast cross-section, we were able to not only look at the different types, different construction types, but then look for similarities, and there always are similarities. And some of the things that were, we'll say, common symptoms of any building. Buildings themselves, believe it or not, they can really be tuned to the way you live in it. Opening windows, shutting windows. There are a lot of natural ways to condition a building rather than just having mechanical means. So as you can see, what we did was, we had firehouses, independent ones, municipal ones. As you can see, we've got the office municipal spaces, the ops building and vehicle garages, the rec department with its pool, police station. Each and every one is its own character, and it's got its own personality, especially the volunteer and the firehouses, because they are places that have their own rather unusual schedules, and they always have to be ready. They're not, you can't count on them as well as you can say a police station, you know, is open 24/7. These are open and shut, open and shut. Next, please. All we're going to do in this one here, it's very simply, this is the Bible, and it's called the ASHRAE Level 2, because there are different levels with the ASH2 Level 2 audit, and this is what we conducted for the Village of Ossining. And in essence, it's a very comprehensive, multi-layer way of looking at it. It's also a standard way of looking at any building, especially in commercial buildings, which we're doing. And it lets you look at it in an empirical method. It's not just experience and just what you think and see and feel, but we're able to quantify certain things. And the second you can quantify something, you can measure it. And that's what we're trying to go with. And once you measure it, then you can make value judgments. So then what is basically involved in this thing? Well, in a level 2 assessment, basically is means and methods. I mean, you've got to see the building, but you've got to look at everything in the building. It's a system. A building is a system all in one. We have to then look at all of the historic data. We'll usually try to get a year to 2 years of historic data and set a starting point. How is it performing now? How much energy is being used now? Where can we start? We go through with the analysis of that data, as we say. We calculate all the potential possible energy savings of each ECM. Get used to the word or the letters ECM, that is energy conservation measure. Those are the things we do to make it better. And then you want to make informed recommendations. So you can follow your gut and probably do pretty well, but we back it up with numbers as well. Next, please. What we're doing in here, this is one of just a simple page out of this vast report that we do. This was actually, I was very happy to have a cluster of buildings. Now, as I said, we have 11 buildings. You're looking at 5, for example, here. And when we do this, we can actually, from all the individual buildings, we can actually tally up again and look at how they relate to one another. And if you look, you see some clustering going on. And what you see is all those yeses. And each one of those categories would be, say, building envelope, thermal protection, operations and maintenance. Well, that means that something was up, that we found something, okay? Not that it was bad, not that it was good. It's something you can improve upon. That's all. It's an opportunity. Never look at anything better than it's not a problem, it's an opportunity. So we saw this little cluster of green going on there, which tells us immediately, building envelope. Well, my goodness, that tells me that air sealing, that's number 1. Let's try and get the cold air to stop from coming in from the bottom and stop exiting the warm air from the top, which is called a stack effect. That is a basic one. So this, in essence, is a wonderful tool, which is right in the front of the report. So next, please. This particular sheet is really just to show you how detailed each and every building gets looked at in many different ways. But all of those ECMs, all of that chart that has the green and yellows, well, there are 3 characteristics that any ECM has, no matter if it's the Village of Ossining or the City of New York. We're knee-deep in the City of New York, and we follow the exact same protocol. So what you recommend is things that you can do now, which we'll call them sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. Those are practical and low costs, and they can range anything from just, let's turn the lights off, or let's not open the window in the winter, things of that nature. But they can get more and more complicated. Then there are the ones we call for the future. Well, those are, yeah, they're definitely recommended, but maybe not now. Maybe you want to, that's what we're looking for. First is, what is the immediate thing that we can do right now with some of these buildings, whether they're new or they're old, sometimes nothing, but there are things we can do right now. And then rejected doesn't mean that it's not feasible. It just means that maybe it's not right for this building at this time. It could be an entire new roof. It could be a whole new set of windows, for example. We don't have $65,000 to spend on a particular firehouse to replace all the windows. But when you do know that, there's ways around it. There's always ways around something or ways to address it again. If you've got a leaky window, well, we can do things like, let's say, for example, insulated blinds. Insulated blinds, well, it'll buy you some time, but it's got a double edge on it. Not only are you going to help insulate from losing that energy through your building, but also that heat gain that comes in depending on what side of the building it's on. So there you can buy some time. You can use things like reflective coatings, such like that. But you identify the problem, and you identify many solutions. And as you'll see the municipal building. This building right here is in the upper right-hand side. everybody gets looked at. There's a formula that we solve, and if you'll see quantify and qualify in ECM, well, every single one will have a little bit of a description, a cost, a possible savings, a payback. That's what got rolled up into the previous slide that you started looking at.
Is this done already, or is this something you're going to be doing?
No, it's 99% done now. And we have a test case for you right now, too. It's a subject
Cool.
case.
Thank you.
We have, in fact, if you, one more, please. Now, take a look here. These are the 11 buildings we all looked at. Every goes from independent hose all the way to steamer. Now, we picked Cataract Hose as a case study. And what we did was we looked at it very simply. Let's look at the low-hanging fruit, and that's the first thing we considered after we looked at it. And very simple, high-density foam insulation. Well, that's what we want to get into air sealing. Again, keep it from coming in the bottom. That means sealing around rim joists and the like. And this is an especially good example because it's an older building. So it does happen to have rim joists. It happens to have wooden ceiling joists. There's no rafters, there's joists, but there are others. You take a look at, I think it's Northside. Northside has vaulted ceilings with plank decking. Now, can I insulate that? Of course. We can insulate from the underside, in between the rafters. So there's always ways to improve some of that. So as far as Cataract went, we'd say we like air sealing, high density, really great R values. Let's look at what's for free. Daylight. Well, can we get a little more daylight in and get rid of some of the ambient light that is artificial? You can do that with daylight timers, dimmers, motion sensors. So there we started responding to a firehouse, volunteer or not, then it's not always occupied. So it doesn't always have to be up to full potential. So why not? If we know what we can do. We can go, the one in the italics, behavioral. Well, that's the cheapest. So if we can explain to folks that, well, closing that door does matter, or shutting off the computer at night, it matters. There, you begin right away. I talked about insulated shades. That's another one for this one I thought was pretty helpful. We then keep going, we get more complex. Then the higher tech solutions. The higher tech solutions can have nice large returns, but you put in a little more front and your return can prove to prove itself in a reasonable amount of time. We'll get into things like, I know oil to gas conversions, it's very popular now. You don't have a lot of buildings that are in oil, but there are some of these buildings, and when you can do a conversion like that, the way that the prices work, the efficiency, what's out there, and the equipment that can use it is much more advantageous as life goes on. We have an independent web-based building management system. What all I'm going to say on this one is, boy, technology just really got good, because these systems used to be entire building management systems. Now they're small little brains that go individually in each building. From then, if you can imagine, that's the controller. And then from there, it can go all its tentacles, all its wiring, like a security system, can operate the motion detectors, CO2 detectors, gas detectors, anything you can do. Everybody makes them from Honeywell to Leviton. And they are very affordable now. And not only do that, then they are the basic building block to expand. So when not only can you expand from individual place to place and respect the politics of a firehouse who has different commanders and different chiefs, they can control their own place. But ultimately, if it ever came about, they can be brought into a very simple network. That's where it's web-based, to one special place that can be completely monitored. And it's no different than looking at your dashboard and seeing doors ajar. You can see things like that. You can adjust, you can turn things on and off.
So like the dispatcher, who's someone that is there all the time, could
Yeah.
actually monitor all of this stuff at all of the houses at the same time?
If you had a designated person that you were interested in doing such a thing, yes. If you want to, you're monitoring your very own building. You're tracking the performance of your very own building all the time. You are able to say, this is a well-used building. This building's not being used very much. Those are the things that are the layers of complexity that build on these types of systems. It's almost like the Nest systems. And they're, for the residentials, they've come leaps and bounds. And for the commercial, same thing. They become affordable.
Cool.
Next one, please. This is cataract hose. Now, all I'm saying is let's look at the low-hanging fruit. Very, very simple. What we did is we had to benchmark. So we have to start somewhere. So for this particular building, from July to June, from 13 to 14, well, electricity, you spent 5,800 and change. For gas, you spent 4,200 and change. Well, I said, well, let's look at the easy one. Let's look at the electricity. What can we do? And this is what everybody's doing right now. You take the interior lights, and let's say we go LED with the interior lights. We can average, we know how much, or we can average, we average, let's say, 8 hours a day on, as they are now. The outside lights may be longer. But if you do that, we're looking at a savings, a possible up to, let's say, $523 for an annual savings. So at the cost of what it took, for less than $3,000, he's got less than 4.5 years, 4.3 years, you'd probably be paying for yourself back again, and boy, it makes sense. That's an easy thing to do, and that's what was done here.
2 years is great.
You look at very simple things that we don't always see. Exit lights. They're on 24/7. And they do make a draw, and it's not that you have one, you usually have 6, 10, 12 or something in a building. So because they're constantly on, that's a nice big return very fast. And then you're looking at over the course of a year, there's a lot of kilowatts that we're saving, and that has a value. That $790, let's say, for 12 exit lights at $1,200, that's a year and a half that you might be getting that money back. Again, you're making. These are examples for an old building. You can do it now, and boy, you can build on it.
And let me just clarify, Cataract already is on natural gas. You weren't, is that
Yeah,
what that,
they're-
that number is? That's their
That's
current
the- yeah,
usage?
that is their
Okay.
current. What you're looking at is the actual, from the actual bills
Okay.
that we did obtain from the village, and we use those, and then from there we build.
Okay.
If there's any questions, Mr. Brown, myself, Mr. Chiba is a certified energy manager. He is, also was the auditor who looked at each and every one of these buildings, in every cubbyhole and crevice you could think of. I did also. So hope we can work with you, and any questions you have, we'll try and answer. Thank you.
That's it?
Thank you, Clifford. Do you wanna,
Right.
do you wanna, okay. All right, so we thank them for coming tonight. This is the initial presentation. Did you
Yeah,
wanna?
so I guess I wanted to, just follow up the presentation. I didn't want to get too into the weeds in this particular meeting, in this particular presentation, just because there's so much more information. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And obviously, this small demonstration, just by swapping out to LED, imagine if we did that in all our buildings. I mean, $800 a year, and then you multiply that times how many buildings? We're really talking about a significant savings over time. And because we all know that the cost of energy is going to go up, that saving really, it actually multiplies itself over time. So I think the next step I would like to see would be to have, building by building, have all the completed analysis done, and then through the process, have them show us the investment. I think we need to make a decision. I think that the department heads, I think that Chris Soy and others that run those buildings, the chief, police and the fire chiefs and everybody else, and also the folks in the independent firehouses, need to go over all this stuff and make some decisions about where they feel they want to make this happen, and because eventually they're the ones, I think, that have to adopt the whole notion of this. Not only the physical changes that are going to take place, but also the notion that saving money, saving energy is just a really smart thing to do, and I think it's a cultural thing, and I'm hoping that this study will help everybody understand that and understand the benefit of, not just financially, but beyond that, just as being good citizens, being good stewards to our planet and everything else. So I would like to see Bright Home, finish and complete it, and deliver, really all the finished product to the village manager's office, and then have things distributed from there. And obviously, all of us would have access to the information and have a chance to look at it. So. There's 2 reports, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're over 300 pages of detail for all the buildings. That's the level they went into. And we thought we'd spare you that at tonight's meeting.
So,
Thank you for that.
So that's, where you said there's 2 reports, that's just the first 2 reports that are done, because I think, that's for the full 11 built, so all of the reports are completed.
Yeah, they did
Okay.
them in 2 phases, like 2,
Oh,
they
okay.
grouped them,
Okay,
yeah.
Our reporting got stressed, so we split them in half.
Why don't you just go up to the microphone?
oh yeah, but
so-
it's
yeah.
for the people on
Yeah, for
television, they
people on
can't hear.
camera, so yeah, that's okay.
Our,
6 through 11.
yeah, there is so much data, it's easier for us to split it in half and say, hey, we'll do this chunk of 5, this chunk of 5, and then they come together. And I only had 1-inch binders, that's why you have 2. Because we recycle them all the time.
Can we get them in electronic copies?
Absolutely, that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Save a treat.
so then, obviously, as John was suggesting, we would want to share those with the folks in the buildings so that they can evaluate it, as well as our building maintenance supervisor.
Yes.
And I know that we're all curious to see what the opportunities are
We-
that are out there. So what is the timeline for that kind of decision-making? And then as we're making decisions, do you recommend we focus on one building project at a time? Or?
Well, one of the suggestions that had come from Mr. Codman was that we just sit down with each of the building owner and kind of explain what's going on in their place so they can get a sense of it. They'll also give us some good feedback if we need to tweak something sometimes. We did a project in the village of Terrytown for their city hall, and it was actually the secretary that we dropped the stuff off initially. She said, you guys are really screwed up, because the real problem in this building is we all have heaters and mini fans to keep ourselves cool, and you didn't talk to us about it. And we walked around, there was 57 little heaters in that building.
Wow.
So it's like, holy cow, So talking to those individuals makes a big difference. So I think that's a good idea. That would be my next step, is I'd like to talk to everybody who's an owner of the building. We pick up some stuff, make sure we haven't missed anything there. And you don't have to read 300 pages. I'm pretty good at putting about 4 pages, anything you really need to know.
Great.
Because we have to. I mean, we do this work for big buildings in the city. Nobody reads our reports, but they do read those first 3 or 4 pages, and we can bring it to life for you.
Well, and I think that's the idea, is that obviously it's all set up on Excel spreadsheets, so it's all done with macros and everything, and they can roll up all the data into, when Clifford was talking about the clusters, we can look at, if we look at all of one of the ECMs that we want to do, we look at if it's all common across all the buildings, we can aggregate the cost of that. We can look at that across all the energy use and figure out if that particular remediation is worth investing in, and if we're going to get enough money back to make it worthwhile, and what's the payback period in aggregate for that one ECM. So I think that's the way we want to analyze it. That's the way we want to look at it, because if we look at that from a contract cost, we're combining that activity across a bunch of buildings, and it will allow us to get some cost efficiencies when we have the work done.
Yeah, so the whole answer is I'd like to be done in 2 weeks. This thing can be done. It needs to get wrapped up. It needs to move on. And so you can make decisions. And we can do that in the next 2 weeks,
Great.
depending on whether or not you want us to talk to the owners of the buildings, or is there an opt for, however you guys views the best way, and you got to build a consensus, right?
So,
It's been my experience that management by wandering around is very effective. And the more that you talk to the end users of whatever it is you're doing, the better your product is going to turn out. And particularly when you're talking about cost savings. Your example of the folks with the heaters and fans under their desk is perfect.
Yeah.
I think that the next step ought to be talking to all of the, the end users in all these buildings to find out what their concerns on, what things that they know about that you wouldn't know unless you spoke to them. Also, I imagine some of this work is work that has to be contracted out, and some of it's work that our own people can do, right?
There is absolutely work that your folks can do.
Okay, so
I
you
mean,
gotta talk to our building department and our
Like
DPW
what?
guys.
Yeah, we were, what Trustee Codman was talking about with Clifford and myself and Yoichi was, they're going to finish up the reports, and although that you all don't have to read the 300 pages, Clifford has gone through with the fine tooth comb, and Yoichi has, and John. They're going to just tweak the information, make sure everything is, there's no holes in anything, and then move towards meeting with some of the key stakeholders in those buildings and getting their feedback. And I know that the board is desirous in having the department heads also part of that conversation.
Very much so.
And that's what we're planning on doing.
Yeah, I'd also like to make sure that Andy Teese has a chance to look at it comprehensively beyond just the water department stuff. So.
Oh,
Sure.
absolutely.
All right.
And things like, I mean, let me see if I got it right, what John was saying. So if we replace all the exit signs in all the buildings at the same time, there's a cost saving from doing them all at once. It's probably more cost effective to do things rather than buildings. Instead of fixing everything at Cataract and then everything at Independent, it might be more cost effective to replace the exit signs in all of the buildings and then the LEDs, other lighting in all the buildings, and then do the wiring for the online stuff in all the buildings. Have them be projects that way? Are you saying that's?
Well, that's one approach we could take. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I think we need to look at the data. I think we need to understand. I mean, you know, that was a kind of a straw man I threw out there, but I think, you know, once we get a better idea of what the analysis is and where the patterns are, and where there's, you know, a common situations amongst the buildings, I think that's going to give us an idea of, you know, what it is we got to do and what's the necessary investment to make, and there'll be a whole calculation around the return on investment, and that's the whole thing that we want to do. We want to understand how long it's going to take to repay the investment.
Right.
So
That also brings us to money.
Yes.
Right.
Are there grants available for this kind of stuff? Does this come out, for example, do the firehouses, do the upgrades come out of the fire department budget? Or do they come out of some other capital budget? How do we pay for all of this? Do we know?
we got to look into that.
So we don't know
Yeah,
yet.
we don't know. I
Okay,
mean,
that's
I
fair.
can help you, actually.
Well, please do.
So, much like with IFCA called us because they had one boiler with a problem, and they couldn't find anybody who could fix it. So I said, I'll come out and look. What the heck? But after I started talking to them and seeing their properties, it was like, holy cow, there's some huge opportunities here. So once I put together what the opportunities are, which is what we're doing here, then I just started calling everybody who's got money. So that money for IFCA is coming from 5 different places in the state of New York. I don't care where it comes from, but we know all these people.
Oh, good.
So once we put something together, I don't know what's available for cities until I start asking. And then the better part of it is that the state of New York, you know, we have a governor who wants this to be a environmentally friendly state. I mean, there's some real opportunities.
Great.
I mean, you've got an opportunity to put solar in some of these places. That's easy money we can find you, period. That's a 3-4 year payback in most cases today.
Is that something you guys do too? And
Yes.
look at while you,
Yeah, that's part of, one of the buildings at least has an ECM on solar. And-
Hose.
It had solar one time in the past, and the solar was, I believe, this is what I understand, for hot water. Any of the buildings that are.
you should really get up and talk in the microphone just for the audience. So
Any of the buildings that especially are adjacent to the river have unobstructed solar gain. So sometimes you're getting pelted with the solar gain. It's hard to live in the building, so we would put some shades up for the occupants. But now, let's capitalize on that. And especially if it's a flat roof. Flat roof works very well. Doesn't matter what direction it's building. So we have I saw at least 2 buildings
Oh,
that
good.
could probably benefit from it if you wanted to.
And then I would talk about taking out the boiler altogether and putting in different kind of heating.
Yeah.
So those are the opportunities. I have one last question in terms of payback, though. Do you look at do you have a payback timeline? Do you want 3-year paybacks, 5-year paybacks? Do you not have a number that you operate with generally on that?
I would seek the advice of our treasurer. No,
They're
no,
doing-
we
they're all-
would seek the advice.
Listen,
You know, we're gonna have to talk about that
Yeah,
internally.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
so
That's one of the
we'll
things
take a
that-
look at the report and
It
see what makes
helps me
sense.
also to prioritize for you.
Passing
And then the
the buck.
second piece is there, for the village of Austin, is there a payback that includes carbon footprint reduction, or is that not something you guys count?
We do
But
count
do you
that.
want that?
Yes.
Okay, because that also is part of the mix for us, when I look at what we're gonna present to you as, here's probably where you ought to start, because we really like to say, here's where you should start, here's where you should end. Now, if you don't like my idea, we can talk about why I did that, but I wanna rank it in terms of return on investments
Okay.
on those two pieces.
Well, it goes without saying that, you know, the faster we can get our money back, the better, because, you know, then we can deploy that money elsewhere or into other things that would also save us money. So that's certainly true. I wouldn't take anything off the table. I think it also depends on the dollar amounts we're talking about. You know, obviously, the less we can spend and the more bang for our buck we can get, and the shorter the timeline, well, obviously, that's clearly more attractive. But we have to think about the larger picture
Yeah.
too, or long term, especially when it comes to cost of energy. And you know,
Absolutely.
to my mind, you know, the more we can get off the oil, the better we're going to be. You know, oil is so inefficient. I mean, you're losing all that heat up the stack, and there's the pollution factor and the cost. You know, and the more you can turn to gas, where you're looking at a 97% efficiency, and the waste product is water vapor. So you know,
Well, okay, let's not get into a
Yeah.
topic, because I could go all night about natural gas, because before it gets here, there's a whole process it goes through.
There's
But
all that
let's take a
stuff.
look at the reports, okay?
Yeah, okay. But I just wanna know your investment equations.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I can help.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. The next topic on our agenda is the Route 9 traffic calming. Now, this is something that's been,
I need to excuse myself for a minute.
Certainly. Do we want to take a 2-minute break? Yeah, let's just take a 2-minute break. Welcome back. Thank you. Valerie?
Good evening. I'm here to present tonight basically a discussion about Route 9, to talk about the realignment or restriping, and to kind of bring this board up to speed on the history of the project, and then also next steps. So tonight's presentation is going to include history of events dealing with the time period between 2000 and 2006, 2007, 2008 to 2009, and then next steps. I will say that the PowerPoint presentation is not going to be, there's not a lot of images on this PowerPoint presentation. I was busy working on it today, and so basically you're going to see a lot of text. So I apologize for the, not exactly the flashy presentation. But also in the audience tonight, the village engineers here, as well as representatives from the police department. So when I'm done the presentation, you know, we'll open it up for questions, and then clearly both the police department as well as the village engineer, they've also been very much involved in these the history of these events as well. So I'm sure they could probably give some insight into it as well. All right, so to start off with 2000, 2006. In 2000, the village board voted on a resolution for an independent firm to develop a pedestrian-friendly design for Route 9 from basically Croton River to Arcadian Shopping Center. That was directly taken from the resolution in 2000. In 2001, the village actually contracted with Sector Planning and Parish, Weiner, and Mafia to, 1, develop and refine proposals for Route 9, and then 2, to conduct environmental impacts and seeker review for the route for a Route 9 traffic calming. In 2002, the village board voted to request New York State DOT to review the concept plan, which I'll get to in a minute, from Sector Planning. And then in 2003 and 2005, public hearings were held on the concept plan itself. So let me just end this for a second. So this was the concept plan. Oops, I'm sorry. This was the concept plan in 2005. This was after, and it's a little hard to see, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit. But basically, as you can see here, basically the concept was you were going to reduce basically from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes throughout the village, starting, actually it starts down here. It's starting from Cedar, Placer, and Wilton, all the way to Cedar Lane. This was also going to include, in 2005, this was also going to include some additional traffic lights and also some additional crosswalks. So, for example, you see at Denny Street, there were recommended traffic signals, new crosswalks. There was also going to be bump outs around, or what they call bulb outs around Main Street. There was going to be changes to the crosswalks on Croton Avenue. So, and you were going to have additional parking spaces along Route 9. So this was a very comprehensive plan. However, it was only a concept plan. And what I'm trying to explain, a concept plan basically is has not had a concept plan has not had an engineering or real design review taking place at that point. This has been, clearly there were consultants involved, and they did get to the point of communications with New York State DOT and also public meetings on that. However, and also the project goals for this particular plan was to have initial changes to be implemented with just paint and asphalt. So it was only supposed to be a temporary measure, because the impacts were then going to be reviewed and changes were going to be made permanent based upon the reviews from New York State Department of Transportation. And then finally the initial realignment and would prepare for the eventual enhancements of the road's appearance at the end. So these project goals were specifically taken, I took them today from December 6, 2005 public meeting presentation. So the concept plan that you saw was never going to, or at that point in time, was not in a final plan. It was just a concept plan, and then there were going to be temporary measures put into that plan. To put into Route 9. And then ultimately, depending upon how the success of that, there were going to be potential permanent changes. I will say, in 2006, the village board voted to request New York State DOT to implement the temporary measures. However, they also requested, as part of that resolution, to synchronize all the traffic signals with the temporary measures, which was sort of in addition to what was initially discussed throughout the concept plan. So originally the concept plan was going to restripe, but then the village board felt, well, you're going to have difficulties with some of the traffic signals, so we would want to have the traffic signals also synchronized along with the temporary measures. And there was also a request for DOT to analyze for additional traffic signals along Route 9, and Aqueduct, Maurice, and Washington Avenue. These were in addition to the signals that were already, or traffic signals that were already there. So the 2009 concept plan that I just provided you included not only the initial concept plan, but also a little bit more of the wish list from the village, and all of that was sent up to New York State DOT. So also in 2006, there was still work that needed to be completed by New York State DOT. First of all, it's out with seeker. The DOT did say that they would take on the seeker component of the temporary measures, but however, they still had concerns about the reduction of the lanes. One of the concerns was for the fact that in the Route 9 improvement plan by sector planning, they identified both Croton Avenue and Church Street intersections, as well as the Croton Avenue intersections of Route 9. We're going to have difficulty with the traffic volumes because of reduction of the lanes, unless for some reason traffic patterns were going to change. And when I mean difficulty, they actually use the word gridlock. And so New York State DOT had concerns with that particular intersection. They had less concerns with the intersection south of Church Street and north of Croton Avenue, but that the area in the middle was really where they focused on their major concerns of reducing the lanes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. Also, there was still work needed to be done by the Village of Ossining. Traffic signal timing adjustments still needed to be identified and analyzed. Analysis for the additional signals requested were the responsibility of the village to undertake. And then finally, even if the concept plan was agreed upon by New York State DOT, we were still responsible for finalizing the specifications for the temporary improvements only. So that work was still left outstanding. So then in 2007, New York State DOT began their lane reduction work in the other areas of the village and further south of the village of Ossining into Sleepy Hollow. So at that point in time, things sort of went to a little bit of a standstill because they were busy working on that particular project, and they didn't necessarily refocus on the village of Ossining. After that time, communications began to resume again in 2008 with New York State DOT. But at that point in time, the DOT still was not comfortable with the reduction of the traffic in the, with the temporary plans in 2005. So therefore, the village decided to take a look at very specific intersections dealing with the Route 9. And so that's when the village hired Langen Engineering and Environmental Services to continue the work on Long Route 9. This engineering company was hired through the comprehensive plan process. So while we were going through the comprehensive plan process, we also engaged them to help us with some of the Route 9 intersections. So again, feedback from the state included concerns with the 2005 plan, and so the result was scaled back to focus on the intersections of Route 9 and Route 133 and Route 9 and Main Street. So I'll show you what those plans incurred. So those plans in 2009 really just focused on this intersection here and then the intersection down here. It was to try to create a more pedestrian-friendly environment to get pedestrians across quicker. You were going to have like a bulb out in this location, and then you were also going to deal with your pedestrian walkways along Route 133 and Croton Avenue, and then both intersections were also going to take a look at this traffic signal timing and try to improve the pedestrian thoroughfare. But they were not going to, at that point in time, reduce the number of lanes in that area.
Oh, good.
So, the village had meetings with New York State DOT in 2009. Further analysis was requested by New York State, and the village board at that point in time decided not to expend any more additional funds on this particular project. The additional information that New York State DOT wanted, they wanted prepare conceptual plans of improvements that span the study area. They wanted us to prepare traffic studies summarizing proposed improvements. They wanted us to submit schematic plans and study for them to review and approve, conduct public hearings, and seeker, they decided in this particular case was not necessary because because we were not reducing the number of lanes, and that the New York State at that point in time decided it was no longer going to be a pilot test program, that they were likely to fully engineer and construct the permanent intersection. So that brings me to next steps. So if we were going to revive this particular project, one of the first things we would need from this board is a decision as to what changes are we really considering along Route 9. Will they include the lane reductions that the original 2005 plan had from basically M. Wilton to Cedar Lane? Or will they include just key intersections? Will they include requests for new traffic signals and crosswalks? All of those things would need to be decided by the village board as like basically your step one in this process as to what it is that you would like to move forward with. Step two would be confirm with New York State DOT what work the village would need to undertake based upon the decision of step one. And then also what funding, if any, is available from New York State DOT for the implementation of the changes. In 2005, New York State DOT was going to include temporary measures as part of their repainting plan, but final construction and funding sources were not identified at that point. In 2009, DOT was going to pay for final intersection changes. However, the village needed to pay for all the analysis and designs. And then step 3 would to engage a consultant again. We anticipate the costs for consultant fees would most likely exceed $100,000 in this particular project. Because most likely the traffic counts would need to be updated since the last traffic counts were done throughout the whole entire village was in 2001, and then we had specific intersections done in 2008. You would clearly need an analysis of whatever it is that you're proposing to do, design, engineering, public meetings, and then depending on what it is, whether we do seeker or not, and then that would be discussions whether New York State DOT would take the seeker on or whether the village would have to. The way I came up with the at least over $100,000 is because I know in 2005 the village spent about $40,000 before the project was stopped, and at that point you still was only in the concept plan and you still had to do more design, more analysis. And then in 2009 we spent $20,000 with another $20,000 proposed before the project was stopped in that particular situation. And again, there was still at least twice that amount of work still needing to take place. So that sort of concludes where we are, the history, and where we sort of need to go.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Valerie, for giving us the background.
Take
So-
a breath.
What?
Take a breath.
Yeah.
So, asked Valerie to prepare this presentation to give the board really a better sense of the work that had been done on this in the past. We have a lot of new board members, and we know this has been a topic for some time. But there was a lot of detail that did go into it, and the board has to, at this point, has to decide what direction they want to go with this project and what level.
Before all of us start asking our questions, because we're going to come at it as, community members and people who hear from a lot of community members. But would it be all right if, Lieutenant Montague, do you have any thoughts on this that you could share to us from a public safety traffic flow perspective?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, good morning, or good afternoon. Lieutenant Jim Montague, Ossining Police Department. I've been with the agency for about 21 years now, and I prepared a couple of things to say here about this. Okay, so in the last couple of years, I got heavily involved with traffic safety from an administrative standpoint within the police department. When there's traffic concerns, when there's things that residents are concerned about, they usually fall to me, and then I work with our planning people and DPW people to try to improve them. As a result of that, I was able to go to a couple of different schools. One of them was New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee pedestrian and bicycle law enforcement training. I attended a walk and bike New York symposium, and I also spent a week at the NMTIC, which is a New York Metropolitan Transportation Commission in New York City, for their Designing Pedestrian Safety Workshop. So I got a little bit of background, not to mention my 21 years of experience working the road. So Route 9 and Route 9A, two very different roads. Unfortunately, commuters coming north, when they're approaching that split, that 9 and 9A split, many times, if their destination is somewhere that they can reach from either road, they have a decision to make. And when they reach that road, many times, they'll look and see if, all right, 9A is backed up, I'll take 9. Or vice versa, 9's backed up, I'll take 9A. Unfortunately, many of those folks treat both roads much in the same way, but the roads are very different from one another. One of them is known as a parkway, the Briarcliff Peekskill Parkway. The other is a surface street here in Ossining, with a lot of potential conflicts, both other vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. Year over year here in Ossining, my experience has been we're getting more and more pedestrians, and I'm becoming more and more concerned about their safety. Route 9 suffers from an identity crisis. Currently, there's 5 transitions from single lane to double lane on the roadway as you traverse the village through the section that we're talking about. What that does, it bottlenecks at those points. So you're really not getting the benefit of a two lane in a single direction or a 4-lane roadway as far as traffic flow. You're not actually sending as many cars on a 2-lane road that you think you would, because you're bottlenecking at each side. So you're losing the benefit there. Also, pedestrian safety records for multi-lane roads is very poor. There's we have a lot of pedestrians struck on multiple lane roads, much more so than on single lane roads. Beyond that, through Ossining, through this section that we're talking about, there's 5 mid-block crossings. Now, mid-block pedestrian crossings are something of a rarity. Motorists expect to see a crosswalk at an intersection, so they're prepared for it. Crossings that are mid-block that aren't part of an intersection are a little more of a surprise. And if you're coming through the village at your first time, or you're not through the village too often, you may not even know that these mid-block crossings exist until you see somebody crossing. Another issue that I have. Okay. Also, motorists are not the only problem. Pedestrians make a lot of poor decisions too. Now, you understand the difference, but the difference is with the law is dictated by right-of-way. When you're in a crosswalk, pedestrian has the right-of-way. When you're not in a crosswalk, the motorist has the right-of-way. A lot of poor decisions are made by pedestrians every day, and we see it every day driving through the village. So improvements upon that section of roadway could help both motorists and pedestrians. Now, traffic calming is defined as physical changes which reduce opportunities for speeding and aggressive driving. Now, everyone here knows that when you're driving on a single lane section of Route 9 and you come upon a double lane section of Route 9 and the person driving in front of you is driving slower than you want to drive, well, then you pull to the left and you accelerate. Studies have shown, and the data I have is from New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee statistics. On 30-lane roadways in New York State, the average right lane speed is between 25 and 30 miles an hour. The average left lane speed is between 35 and 50 miles an hour, substantially faster. When a pedestrian is struck by a vehicle traveling 30 miles per hour, they have an 80% chance of survival. If they're struck at 40 miles an hour, they have a 30% chance of survival. It's a substantial difference. Also, the center turning lane stuff down at South Island Avenue, Dunbar Arcadian, fantastic. Because, and this is another Governor's Traffic Safety statistic, center turn lane reduces left turn rear end accidents by 90%. So that person in that left lane, what was once a left lane, making that left turn, being struck from behind because the next person's not paying attention, it happens 90% less when you have a center turning lane. Now, potential changes, as we're seeing on the board there, any number of them, and it's scalable. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be the full area of Ossining all reduced to 1 lane, but there are improvements that can be had, and every single improvement that we make can incrementally increase our safety. Okay, road diets, which narrowing a lane or removing a lane, turning lanes. Turning lanes smooth traffic flow, because what they do, they get that car that wants to turn left or right out of your way. Pedestrian refuge islands and bump outs. These are two things that they've become very popular now at the NIMTIC. They really talked about them a lot. It's something that they're doing a lot in New York City. The Vision Zero initiative is all part of that. They're trying to reduce pedestrian injuries and fatalities, and they're being pretty successful with it. Now, the bump out or the refuge, depending on the makeup of your road, reduces the amount of the distance that a pedestrian has to travel across a roadbed. When they're on a roadbed, they're at risk. Once they're off the roadbed, the risk is mitigated. So the idea is to shrink that distance for them. Children, elderly, people with disabilities, those are the folks that I'm talking about that are going to have a hard time getting across a 4-lane roadway that we have right now in front of the high school. a tremendous number of pedestrians. A lot of them are children. And I think all of these, any of these improvements will help. All of them will help even more. That's all I've got. Except for just one thought. A few years ago, when I first heard about this concept and the plan, I thought about my responsibility. My responsibility is not to get folks that are in, and not to disparage any other municipality, but it's not to get folks that are in Croton to Sleepy Hollow, or folks that are in Sleepy Hollow to Croton as quickly as possible. My responsibility is to get everybody that's moving around Ossining and through Ossining and in Ossining as safely as I can. Motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And that's why I kind of grabbed onto this project. So, thank you.
Lieutenant, you mentioned NIMTIC, and
Yes.
I'm also aware that you've had some success in grant applications for other things like the police boat, for example. And I
Yes.
know that you have
There-
made some efforts to learn to do even more with grant applications. Is there grant money out there from NIMTIC that might help cover some of the costs that our village planner, Valerie, was just pointing out would be inherent if we wanted to move forward with any or all of these potential changes?
Valerie has quite a bit more knowledge than I do in that realm, but I do, for my...
Passing the buck again, there we go.
There you go.
My experience at NIMTEC, I mean, just reading through some of the things, there's safe routes to schools, which there's an opportunity there, and there's a few other things that's just a name off the top of my head, but there are opportunities for funding. I'd really have to research it.
Okay, okay. Our village engineers here, Paul, did you want to weigh in on the subject, or do you feel like it's mostly been covered by Valerie and the lieutenant? Go right ahead, please, because I know all of you have been, this board was not, and none of us were elected at the time that this process happened before, and many of you were, so we're grateful for your perspective.
Absolutely.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. That was, I think, a very thorough presentation by Valerie, and it had some flash to it. I thought it was pretty good. Anyway, that said, I just want to reiterate a couple of things that she showed. She showed some of the initial work that was done when we were trying to take advantage of what DOT was doing north and south of us during that lane reduction and their repaving efforts when they were coming through the village. So they did the lane reduction, and then when we knew they were going to repave, because they did approach our offices for that, we thought that would be the opportunistic time, since they were going to be repainting everything, to take advantage of the lane reduction. So we did some of that initial work pretty expeditiously and thought we had a focus. And then when and Valerie, I might not have the exact dates, but she can correct me if I'm a little off track here. What happened after we started discussing that plan in a board setting was we got a lot of digression. And when I know everybody on the dais is a proponent of public participation, but once that box opened, it became, well, we're going to do a lane reduction from here to there, but everything else is more or less going to stay the same. And that became, yeah, but how about down in the hollow? We need to look at that, which became, we also want to make Broadway come straight across to Croton, maybe. And then it just became so big and so
You missed the opportunity.
well, oh yeah, the ship sailed with regard to the painting. I jumped ahead. What I just said in one sentence was like 2 years. And, I guess if I could do anything to assist the project moving along, I would reiterate what Valerie said. Have a focus, figure out what you want to do, and then proceed down the path. Because if you say, let's just open it up to see what the people want, rest assured, for every person that walks in and says, like the lieutenant says, we want to get through 9 expeditiously, because when I come down from Avalon and I want to get to the train station, or I want to get to Phelps because that's where I work, from Cedar Lane, and I can't do it if you do this, there's going to be a person that walks in and says, well, take 9A, because I want to be able to walk across the street and park all up and down 9A, and I want shops and this and that and the other thing, and bicycle lanes. So you're going to have, for every person that comes in one way, you're going to have another way. So Valerie was offering good advice when she said a focus needs to be determined on what you want to see. Because the last board started out saying, we want to see Terrytown, right? Up and down Main Street with the shops and the restaurants and bustling on 9. But then that became, we want to see Terrytown, but really not that slow, and we don't really need the park. And then it became impossible to get a focus, and the $40,000 that we spent was truly a concept. The $100,000 that she and I discussed this afternoon when she was putting this together was at least, because that could double, triple, orders of magnitude, depending on what you want to see. So I think the focus is important, and then you proceed down the path, because I don't think you'll get where you want to go without that.
Valerie, thank you, Paul, thank you, Lieutenant. So if the board decided our priorities are safety, potentially increasing parking for our downtown, which this might have an opportunity for, adjusting the traffic flow, particularly at the, let's say Church Street intersection and 133 intersection, being someone who lives up 133, I'm keenly aware of that. If we decided that we wanted to do quite a significant amount or approach it with that mindset, because that was determined to fulfill our larger goals for economic viability and fulfilling our complete streets policy intentions. We are at a different time right now. The mindset is different. New York State law and policy is different. Complete Streets came from them, so New York State DOT should look favorably upon a community like ours that is trying to fulfill the Complete Streets goals, which were also reiterated in using different language, but by the lieutenant. We don't have $100,000 ready, and we certainly don't have more than that ready to make that happen. So one of the things I was going to talk about later when we do our liaison reports is Valerie, Lori Lee, and I attended a very informative discussion last week with the consolidated funding application. I don't know what all you have in mind for this season's consolidated funding applications, but is now the timeline, do we have the time for you to reach out to Heather Taylor? Yeah, and find out, look, these are, we have this intention. We'd like to dedicate resources from all of our departments, and financial resources are going to be needed beyond our existing budget for the year to be able to go through whatever steps you determine make up that $100,000 to move forward. If we said that, and put in a consolidated funding application, is that something that's worth exploring with
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean,
REDC.
my guess is that they would probably, I mean, yes, I could definitely explore it. If we were to put one in, it'd probably be for like, not necessarily because the $100,000, is sort of like, we're trying to get you an idea of like the full kit and caboodle, because, what we found over the years, especially dealing with these two projects, or what I've seen also, I was involved in one and then I saw a lot of the documentation from the other. It was sort of like, well, we'll go in this direction, and then all of a sudden, we waited, and then DOT said, well, we want you to do this. And so we were piecemealing sort of the project. And so, this would sort of, we were sort of trying to give you an idea of like soup to nuts, like what the cost would be. So if we were to put in a grant, what we would do is probably focus on, doing the traffic counts, your analysis, and then like design. And then probably, then they would probably want at some point in time we could probably put in for another grant to do like the actual engineering once we have our discussions with DOT and everything's finalized. Because I think what you're going to find as you go through that, it is sort of like, as Lieutenant and Paul were talking about, it's like this push-pull thing, There's the issue of traffic, and then there's the issue of pedestrian safety. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult sometimes to find that good balance.
Right.
So.
Right.
We don't have that balance now. That intersection, particularly at Route 9 and 133, is extraordinarily dangerous for pedestrians. I wouldn't do it. I'm an old crippled guy, and it takes me a really long time to go across that, and I don't even attempt it anymore. That much time in two-way traffic scares me.
I know. I think that was why the initial focus was. The second round of this project really focused on that intersection. But as Paul was saying, you know, part of, I think, besides the fact that there was additional funds and the village board just didn't want to spend any more funds, I think what we were starting to hear from the public is, well, what about this area and what about that area? And then it became like, well, does it become a bigger project? Does it not? You know, if we only say we're going to focus on this project, you know, I think if the board decides to move forward and we do it in piecemeal, that doesn't mean that we can't focus on one section and then focus on another section later on down the line.
Right.
You know, like clearly Route 9 is an issue in numerous different intersections, but I think as everyone has been even talking about in this discussion, everyone's sort of focusing on from Church Street to Croton Avenue as the first big issue of trying to get pedestrian safety and then also better traffic flows. And, you know, I think there are definitely things that can be done to address both those issues.
Because then, I wanted to say that the flip side of what I said to you is we have gridlock now.
Right.
In order for me to come here to this meeting, I always have to sit at least 2 full cycles of the traffic lights in order to get from Main Street
Up
to
to-
here.
right.
Because there's that no turn on red there on the Croton Avenue side.
Yes.
The cars back up past 2 lights.
Right.
And so the light turns, but you don't get to move. You gotta wait for it to turn red again, then you gotta wait for it to turn green again to get past that light. And then sometimes you have to wait again for the next light. So it's a quarter mile, it can take 10 minutes to get here. And it's very frustrating. I know what I do, I live on Hunter Street down by the train station. I skip Ossining. I go down, all the way down to the water and come out and go up Snowden Avenue and come out. And I don't think that you want to encourage people to skip coming through the business district of Ossining. And that's already happening. So that is a concern, as well as that we got pedestrians that are in danger right now, and we've got gridlock right now. So clearly, we have to do something pretty expeditiously.
Trustee Codman.
Yeah, the traffic stuff you're talking about, Bob, is really during certain times of the day. You know, I mean, morning rush, afternoon rush. That's when all that takes place. It's very concentrated. I mean, I mean, you know, at 10 in the morning, you can get anywhere you want around town.
That's true.
You know, it's really about certain times of the day where everybody's on the road and everybody's going somewhere.
Yep.
They're coming or they're leaving from work, they're going to work, you know, whatever. All those things are happening, and that's always going to be the case. That's we're always going to have those gridlock times. But yeah, I don't think there's anything. There's too many cars on the road. There's too many people driving. Everybody's got a car, and there's one person in every car.
You take the no turn on red sign off of 133, you
Well,
saw that.
Okay, let's not get into the weeds and the minutia,
That's not
okay?
a-
You'll
that-
find that you'll
I mean,
find
listen,
that
there's
you're-
all these little, listen, everybody's got their little panacea. If they had their little special deal where they could make that turn, yeah, their life would be better. But, you know, we have to look at things more holistically. Just to get back to everything that's commented so far, thank you for the update.
Yeah.
And obviously the review of, you know, the history of kind of what brought us to here. And Lieutenant Montague, that I really appreciate your depth of study and your observation and all the time that you've taken to really think about pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, motorist safety, everybody's safety in the village. And you made some very, very keen observations, and I think that we need to listen to those in respect to, you know, what we decide to do going forward. I'm of the mind that we need to kind of focus, because of all the things that have to be done in order to make these kinds of changes. When you look at secret processes and all these other things, you know, I'm more of the mind that I'd like to do things in smaller bites. Because I think it's going to cost a little less money, and because we probably won't be faced with, you know, some of the larger regulatory engagement we'd have to do that stuff. I'd rather see more of the traffic calming things done, like the bump outs and things like that would sort of begin the process of sort of closing things down a little bit. You know, I was observing the last slide you had up here where they sort of tried to address the real crossing issues that happen at 133 and 9. I mean, that's clearly, if we can address that in a way, and if we can address that, and obviously the situation at Church Street, you know, those are major areas that have access to our downtown. And those are the areas where we want it to have the most comfortable and safe flow for pedestrians and cyclists. There's no doubt about it. That's the only way we're going to connect the upper part of the village to the other side of Route 9. And that's the way we're going to make people who live in the upper part of the village comfortable walking down to come and engage in all the businesses that are in the downtown. So I see that as a place where we need to focus right away. With respect to DOT, the olive branch to them is and again, complete streets is important. New York State is behind complete streets. So I would really want to understand how much DOT would be willing to do for us. I would really want to say, listen, we want to do something, so what can you do for us?
Well, I mean, right now, we did receive an email from them about a week or so ago. And, right now that they, pretty much have identified that the village would need to undertake the studies, would need to do the analysis, that they don't have any real sources of funding at this point if we were to go back to like the 2005 study. So, I mean, we
Well, I understand that we have to do that again, okay?
Right.
But the state government's got to step up. I mean, they all love to say, yeah, we love to complete streets, but then they don't want to pay for it. So I mean, I would.
That's what's been happening.
Yeah, well, I'm just
In
saying
reality,
that,
that's
I'm
what's
just
been
saying,
happening
we
in
got
New
a
York
huge,
State.
we
Hasn't really
got a
been
huge surplus here in the state of New York on the backs of things I don't want to talk about right now. But the point is if they want a complete streets program here in New York State, then they need to get behind it a little bit. And I'd like to see them funded. I'd like to contact our legislators, Sandy Galiff and Carlucci, and say, hey, let's find out if we can get some money from DOT to do this. We know they're going to do the restriping. We know that's going to happen because it's all scheduled now. They've done all that stuff all the way up to, I guess, down to where the down to where the Stop and Shop is, right? All that stuff was restriped
Right.
within the last few years. So we know they've gotten to there, and now it's a matter of where they're going to go from there all the way up to the other side, to the north end of town. And we know something's going to happen, and I think we need to decide what we want to do.
Well, I think I just want to clarify, the restriping that's going to take place is just actually repainting the lines that are there now.
Right,
Okay.
but I'm just saying that
Right.
they're going to go through this whole effort, and rather than have just restriping everything the way it is, I'd rather have them hold off so we can make some decisions ourselves about maybe changing that restriping. So maybe we can get ourselves into a situation, certainly in those sections that I just discussed, which is Church Street and 133 and 9A.
I think maybe we might want to hear from the Department of Public Works on that, because that deals with, once those paint starts coming off the roads, then it becomes difficult with like crosswalks and stuff like that.
Yeah, right now, I mentioned it earlier, we had that opportunity when they were repaving because they were putting a new layer and doing a complete new painting with the new lines north and south of us, and that's when we thought we could take advantage of that. Now, like Valerie referenced, it's a maintenance item for them now. It's not engineered, there's nobody involved other than their maintenance, and they go out and just repaint what's there to keep that established. I don't know when their next touch-up or maintenance is, or if it's continual or annual or biannual. I just know that the restriping you're talking about doesn't black out the whole road and start from a new palette. It's
Right.
really just like we do. We maintain what's
Right.
there until we don't.
So it's just general maintenance.
So we don't have the pressure of trying
No.
to work around that calendar. We just need to move forward as we are able to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I still feel strongly that the big intersection, 133 and Croton Avenue and 9 there, and then the Church Street area, those are the areas where we really need to get the traffic calming there. We really need to create the turn lane or whatever it has to be done. That whole area needs to collapse. Or at least make it so that, there's an island in the middle or something there.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary place. And I agree with Bob. I mean, I'm faster than Bob, probably 2 or 3 times faster than Bob. But I'm
that's
scared
not-
of going across that street.
That's not setting the bar very
Okay.
No,
high.
I'm just saying that,
Faster than me.
So it sounds like we should maybe,
I'm just saying.
look for grants that will focus on from Church Street up to Croton Avenue
Yeah.
and those intersections.
Go ahead, Manuel.
Well, I want to thank
Mr. Casella.
Valerie, thank you, Paul, Lieutenant. I guess, because I know some of us up here, definitely I haven't seen the plans. I haven't seen the master plans that were done in 2000, 2005. I haven't seen any of the report, so thank you for that presentation. I would like for you to email me that information, or whoever wants that
I'll send it
information
to Christina.
to actually
Thank
see
you.
that a little bit close. And this is more like a question for the board. Are we making a decision tonight, or do we need to? Okay, all right.
We're just
Because
discussing.
one of the things is, definitely I wasn't involved in this in 2000. So, and I know that Paul kind of touched a little bit in what happened with the public feedback at that time, where, you know, it kind of grew from what the goal was at that time. Is it something that we as a board are looking to get the public input again, or is it something that we're gonna have to make a decision? We're gonna be like, we're gonna study from Church Street up to Crown Avenue and just this quadrant now? Is that something that we are looking to do, or is it something that we're gonna be like, we know the issue, we know the problem, we're just gonna implement this and go from there? So that's something I guess we need to figure
We
it
need to
out.
talk about,
We
yeah.
need to talk about that, which is, I think, is important. $100,000, maybe more. That's something else that we also need to talk about, I guess, and hopefully between Lieutenant and Valerie, you'll be able to get us some grants, and we can get that for free at some point, which I haven't got.
That's just the soft cost. stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess at one point, we do have to look at money-wise and how far can we go? We already spent about $60,000.
More than, I think it
Well,
was
you
more
said
than that.
40 and 20?
Right now, yeah, about
Yeah.
60. But I mean,
So
that was
about
just a
60
quick blush
so far.
with like having
Yeah.
Tom check.
And it's still just paperwork. It hasn't even anything been
Well, and I think
completed.
both times have been so different that you basically recreated.
We're starting over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta
No,
start
no,
over.
exactly.
We gotta do a
But-
new traffic study, you know? I mean, if we're gonna do any of this stuff, we're gonna have to spend money on that. I mean, the DOT is gonna require that.
Yeah.
I
Secret's
agree.
gonna
No,
require
of
that.
course.
All that stuff's gotta
You know,
happen.
I'm not saying we're not, but the situation is we have to understand, you know, what are the needs now? Know what were the needs were in 2000 and 2005, 2006. What are the needs now? And it almost I don't think it has changed that much. Maybe more traffic, more cars, yes, than
We-
2000, so.
We can bring this back for a future work session. There's a lot of information presented here, and a lot of information that some of the board members hadn't seen before. And we're not looking for a quick answer. This isn't. This is a big project.
It is.
And in the meantime, we can ask the staff to investigate possible funding sources, see what's out there, and bring it back for future discussion.
But I think we do have a consensus that the most important
Let's-
thing
let's hear
is
from
that,
Omar.
I will, just give me a second, is the intersection at 133 and 9 and Church Street. I think so far everybody, I'm sure Omar will say the same thing in a minute, that seems to be the thing that everybody agrees is the biggest problem, the biggest immediate problem. So I'm just saying that we might want to consider that.
If you ask the people who drive south on 9, their biggest concern is the hollow. So I think we need to look at all of these reports and we
What's
shouldn't
wrong with
make
the
it.
hollows? It goes down, then it goes up.
Right, okay. Omar, did you want to?
Yes, I did.
say something?
Thank you. No, I just wanted to point out, first of all, I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to really bring us from 2005 to present. And because even though now we have to hire a third consultant, we'll get into how I feel about that later, but it's very important for everyone to understand that this board is committed to finding our focus when it comes to this project, and I can speak for the board when it comes to that. We will find our focus. I know you've heard it before, but I do feel confident that we could find a focus, and then once we establish what our focus and what our project is, then that can be the area that we could allow for public input. I do understand you do open up the floodgates, as you call it, when you ask for input. But if you structure it and you focus it, and you've already established that is your focus, and you're not really going out of that, that gives people a better idea on how to be able to comment and how to be able to have an input on what's going on. I think Paul or Valerie? No, John. Trustee Codman. I agree. This has to be done in stages. Unfortunately, this is going to be something that this board and boards to come are going to have to address. And that's why the village board and the county adopted the Complete Streets policy, because we know that statewide and even here locally, our streets, our roadways, our sidewalks are not what they should be. As a, we're a work in progress, but that is that. I did the math, 11 years of this conversation, and it's great that now we have a couple of areas and different scenarios about what was done. But to touch on what Trustee Casada said, even though we've done our research and had a focus the past couple years, unfortunately, we are going to have to start from scratch in some respects to match our new focus, and to start that process again. And as long as all our residents know that, unfortunately, because we are dealing with state property and village property, and it's a mutual thing, it's not all going to happen this year, right? What's great is that we're discussing it tonight, and hopefully we could bring it back later. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. And that we're going to address it head on.
Okay, our village historian was just in here. We had a conversation about urban renewal. Oh, there she is, Dana. Actually, we've got a room full of historians because Miguel Hernandez is here, the chief of police is here, Dana's here. We've got a very crowded room of people who know a lot more about Austin history than I do. But when discussing urban renewal, what we're most aware of with one of the focuses of urban renewal was removing some of the buildings, and we spent an awful lot of time thinking about and talking about Market Square and how to actually renew that property. But one of the other legs of urban renewal was changing the traffic patterns. Am I right? Yes, they were changed, and that's what we have now. We have the result of urban renewal on Route 9 to remove the traffic out of the downtown.
133-9 was redesigned, and the traffic light that Bob was talking about was blamed on me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Urban renewal was done, but much later, and I didn't want to, I was sitting on my hands because I didn't want to be old in the room. But you're talking about a redesigned Route 9 and 133, and that's probably about 25 years old. That was redesigned, this whole intersection was redesigned. The light that appeared in 2005, 2006 out here was blamed on me, but I never requested the light at all. I don't know who requested that light. All of a sudden, it was put up by the state and the sign. Nobody took responsibility for it because it was a fluke. But that whole thing was that was designed. We designed Route 9 again. Route 9 was 2 lanes. We went to 4 lanes. We took the high school wall, we pushed it back, we cut it, we cut on both sides. So if there's an old timer like me sitting on board at DOT, don't be surprised they say you already asked for it once.
I was thinking about something when you were talking about buffers and, pedestrian buffers where they can walk across the road and have a place to stand before they attempt the second half of the road. Is that what that? Well, it's funny because in that area you're talking about, Miguel, correct me if I'm wrong, please. You've got Route 9, which was the old Post Road for a long time, right? Albany Post Road, and then 133, and then it goes down to Main, right? So that was called Pleasant Square, that whole big area.
Right.
Now it's not so pleasant if you have to drive through it at 4 in the morning. I have to try and turn right onto Ellis Place at 4 in the afternoon from Ellis Place onto Highland, and it's almost impossible. So I just go the other way. But there was always, for a very long time, something in the middle of Pleasant Square. There was a cistern or a fountain where the horses could drink after they came up to the top of Main. It was very steep. And then there was the Civil War statue that is currently on Pleasantville Road across from Chase. That was originally in front of the old savings bank in the middle of Pleasant Square. And you had to go around it. All these things you had to go around. Of course, they had horses and carriages and stuff. They didn't have sports cars. But I'm just saying that concept, there's been something there. And then the Civil War statue, when it was moved, and I think everything was changed and paved and stuff. But a lot of that area of Highland that you see, the crescent was a complete, came up was a complete line of buildings going all the way up North Highland, almost on both sides. Those are now gone. That was part, and I know St. Augustine's had to be moved, and this was part of the widening, and then when the hollow was straightened out and all that stuff, that was basically, I think, Part B of the urban renewal plan. It happened later. I'm not an expert on the timeline yet. I will be. But, so if you look, the Midas building was actually, the facade was removed, and I believe the building made shorter to accommodate for the wider Route 8, and the facade put back on. I mean, the building next to it had to be demolished because all of this work made it unstable. But there are pictures, there were homes on North Highland that were torn down. There were people's homes. There were a lot of businesses. There was a tall building next to Trinity, but that just came down to neglect. So I'm just saying that used to be the case, that you used to have to go around stuff. So it was kind of interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for our history of the last decade and of the last couple of generations. And if Valerie is able to send some of the documentation for us to be able to review, and Christina can share it with the board, then that'll help us really get up to speed on some of the details, so that the next time that we meet, we're a little further along in our understanding. The only timeline concern that comes to mind is if we want to consider doing a consolidated funding application to be able to defer the potential to defer the cost of the planning for this, then that does have a timeline that's coming up in a few weeks, really, right?
Yeah, well, they haven't made any announcements as to when they're going to announce the
Right.
grants, but it probably will be within like the next month, and then they'll probably be due sometime in June or July.
And it sounded like from Heather, if we want any real helpful information from her about how to craft the application, we have to reach out to her before the deadline, before the dates
So
are
I
announced, right?
I will work on that. And then just to let you know, the documents you're gonna get, because I only have so many electronic documents, I don't really have full documents, so I'll send you what I have.
Great.
Because there's a lot of the file has been lost over the years. I mean, we're talking about 15 years or something like that now, so.
Okay.
I had Lisa help me look through what she had, and we sort of piecemealed it, because there was a number of village managers involved in it, a number of administrations, so.
Okay.
You can imagine.
Thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Nice job.
Yep.
Valerie, I'm sorry. I actually had two quick questions. One, for all the recollection, all the paperwork that you did, let's say this board gets the information and say, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to do from Church to Cronin or 133.
Right.
What will be the timeline that will take place? Are we talking about a year? That coordination with DOT and us and the consultants that we'll have to hire? What is the time frame itself? Just a number, and believe me, I won't hold you to it.
No, I know. I can tell you last time around, and that was just with the two intersections that we were looking at, Route 9 and Main Street and Route 9 and Croton Avenue. We had the consultants come on board in 2008, and so about 2009, about a year or so later, we already met with DOT, we already showed them concepts, and we already had some sort of plan as to how things would progress, but then the DOT still wanted some additional, so it probably would have been another year's worth of design or engineering before things went into place.
So maybe like whatever happens,
So
it could take
potentially
about
like a 2 year,
2.5 years
yeah,
to 3
something
years
like
for
that.
construction, complete construction?
No, not complete construction.
Okay.
No, this is
Planning.
just design.
No, that's what I'm
planning.
saying, 3 years.
Plan.
2
Well,
years for
no,
two and
not
a half-
necessarily, because even the last time around, when they said they were going to they were actually going to do the construction themselves, that was going to go on to their, what they call, like, I think it was like maybe their tip or something. So it was actually going to go on to their construction funding, and so that cycle, we weren't actually going to be available for funds for another like 4 or 5 years after they approved of the plan. So it really was something that was a much, because it was, as much as it looks like there wasn't a lot of engineering in, because you're just shortening the intersections and stuff. There was going to be all new traffic. There was going to be new traffic timing, maybe potentially new traffic signals. There was definitely going to be engineering that was going to need the bump outs and stuff like that. So it was going to be a little
So
bit costly.
realistic in a way, I guess. Let's say we finish at some point we'll finish this whole thing in 2 years. It's going to take maybe another 5 years.
Well, that
maybe?
was, again, that was when, at that point, DOT said
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had
yeah.
the fund, right.
Yeah.
So
So
Okay.
So this is big picture, long-range thinking all of us have 2-year terms that we're elected to. Who knows who will be in
Right, well,
office
that's-
next year or 2 years from now? So
We'll try.
This is why.
but we are here to serve the community for generations to come.
Right.
So we want to make very thoughtful, smart, long-range decisions. Ideally, if we go through this process, we'll not just be deciding what are we going to do
For
in the
now,
next
yeah.
year. We will go through and have an understanding of what makes sense for village traffic flow and safety for the many years, what should be the priority of the projects, what are all the considerations, and try to map that out so that we will leave something behind once all of us are out of office. Not that we want that to happen very soon, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Oh,
Val.
yes,
Thank-
Lieutenant, you have something to add?
If you want to start educating yourself, if you go to the NIMTIC website, there's a thing called the TIP, which you just mentioned. The TIP is it's a 5-year plan, it details what projects are being funded by the state, and it actually details who is funding each project, and there's portions of each project being funded by each different thing, for lack of a better phrase. But I noticed there's a couple of projects going on in Terrytown right now. They're on the tip, discussing intersections. Could be a good place to start your research.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Yes, that's a good tip.
Okay, thank you all. The next item on our agenda is a home rule message. Oh, yeah. I'll give Valerie just a second to shut.
Sorry, I'm just going to shut the
That's
computer down. You
okay.
don't need it anymore.
No, I think we're done.
Do you want to turn on the perimeter light?
Let's get some lights.
Yeah, we don't have enough.
Oh, we don't need these. No, we don't. Then I can't see my screen either.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the home rule message on the Urban Renewal Agency, and our Corporation Counsel, Lori Lee Dixon, is going to help.
This is a continuation of conversations we've been having over the last few months. The consensus of the board was to proceed to the dissolution of the Urban Renewal Agency. The Urban Renewal Agency, as you know, was formed by an act of the state legislature in that it's statutorily based. Article 15B of the Municipal Urban Renewal Agencies, Title 17 is specific to the Village of Ossing's Urban Renewal Agency. So therefore, in order to proceed to dissolve it, we have to seek a home rule message of both houses of the state legislature. So I would like to start that process. I would like to contact the legislative directors in both the Assemblywoman Galiff's office and Senator Carlucci's office and get that started. They're quite amenable to taking on the task. They're completely familiar with this. I've done it.
Good.
Home rule messages twice already. The dissolution of the courts required that, and also recently we alienated some parkland to accommodate efforts by the county to realign its Snowden Avenue sewer siphon at the bottom of the hill. So I have engaged them in the past, and I would like to get started with the process by notifying them, sending them a proposed draft of the legislation, and then it would need to come back once the Senate and the Assembly have signed it, bill numbers. It comes back and you pass a formal resolution, so
Great.
we can take up the home rule message.
Do you need something from us?
Then
Just a nod?
I'm just trying to give you the idea of where we are progressing. As you know, there are 3 small parcels of property still in the name of the Urban Renewal Agency. You, as a Board of Trustees, have already authorized accepting that transfer from the Urban Renewal Agency. We would need to eventually provide public notice of a meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency Board. That's you. Notify the public that you're having a meeting, and then you would have to vote to transfer the property out of the Urban Renewal Agency. So there are a couple steps to take, but in order to get started, I'd like to contact Assemblywoman Galiff and Senator Carlucci's office
What do
as
you
early
need
as
from us?
tomorrow.
Do you need a nod? You just need a nod from us?
Yes, I need you to understand the process and to understand that there eventually will be a resolution, but I'll get it started tomorrow.
Is there consensus on the board that we would like Lori Lee to move forward with contacting our
Yes,
state
please.
legislators?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'll get
That's
right on
what-
it. Thank you.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is an exciting topic, Market Square Pop-Up Restaurant. Mr. Miguel Hernandez is here to address the board with regard to this. Also, we did receive several emails about this topic with people expressing their support and excitement for the project.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to make a very brief presentation on a project called The Grill at Market Square. It is a pop-up restaurant concept. Pop-up restaurants are a kind of all of the rage now, not only in New York City, but all across the United States and, in fact, all over the world. A pop-up restaurant is basically a temporary restaurant that is open for anywhere from 1 day to 1 month to 3 months, but it has a limited run. Initially, what we're here for is to ask you for permission to have this pop-up restaurant on village-owned property at Market Square. Initially, this pop-up restaurant will specialize in grilled steak, chicken, and fish dishes at a fixed price. I believe you all have gotten the memo with the photographs of what we intend to do. So I won't go into it in too much detail. Basically, we have engaged my partner and I, Mike Turco, who is a professional chef trained at the New York Institute for Culinary Arts. Is that right, Mike? Did I mention? Almost, right. And we have other line cooks who have been recent graduates of the Culinary Institute of America. And we have some people who are also trained in the front end of the house. So it'll be a thoroughly professional operation. The Grill at Market Square will be adequately insured and will include a hold harmless clause for the village of Ossining. Additionally, it will have all of the necessary governmental permits and licenses required of a temporary food dispensing operation, so that the State Liquor Authority has a special permit process for single events, and the Westchester County Health Department also has a permit system. So all of that will be available. Assuming that the concept works, the next step would be to have a different theme each month throughout the warm weather months. For example, there could be an Italian night, a French night, a Portuguese night, Latin American night, German night, etc. And the idea is to invite budding chefs, and we have many people here in the community and Westchester County who are chefs, but do not have the funds to invest in opening up a restaurant, but to invite them from time to time to come and present their culinary selections to the public. So, in addition, this is a cooperative venture also, which will involve our local restaurants on down the line. So they will be offered also an opportunity to come on different occasions and to, again, present whatever menu they would like to on a particular night. The idea, of course, is to bring attention to downtown Ossining and let people know that it's a happening place and it's a safe place for you to come on a warm summer night. We'll also have cooperation with Mike Risco and other musicians who will present dinner music while these events are going on. Beyond the pop-up restaurant, it serves as an alternative for other retail ventures for adaptive reuse of the existing public space with temporary structures and public participation programs at relatively minimal cost. Examples of these could be antiques, arts, crafts, and performances on Sunday afternoons. The idea is to transform this underutilized space into a retail testing ground and to brand Ossining as, well, first of all, we'd like to see Ossining being branded as the culinary capital of northern Westchester County. And by the way, I forgot to mention that we are going to have some retailers present who have cookware and kitchenware, and they will also be able to have present their products to the public. So that we will get, these are large firms by the way, and they will be able to have a tent and present whatever they like to in terms of their products and services and so forth. So it's bringing people into the community from the business community, and we hope will work. Basically, we're working on the model of something that William Wyeth, a very well-known writer and sociologist, said many years ago. He said, what attracts people most, it would appear, is other people. So by bringing people into Ossining and making it a happening place, downtown Ossining, we hope that this has a spin-off effect. Finally, I'd like just to say that we've just had a great lesson in how slowly the wheels of government grind. And I want to plead guilty to having voted for all of those studies that were put up on the board.
Should never said that. Yeah, no.
The biggest problem, really, not the biggest problem, but certainly one of the problems was that wasn't mentioned really in any depth, of course, is that there was a lot of opposition to this project, to the widening, by a lot of people who came and said, gee, it'll slow my time down to Tarrytown or wherever we go. And so I was very glad to hear that Lieutenant said, you know, my job is to move people safely to town, not quickly. Okay. Mike, you want to add something?
If you have any questions about food, I'd be happy to.
Food? Did you bring any?
Yeah. Any samples?
You didn't bring any, you're out of here.
Well, before I open it up for any questions that the trustees might have, and I'm sure that interim manager Christina Papes might have some information for us as far as details, because she always guides us through this process, whatever her role is in the village. I really appreciate you working so hard to bring a new kind of event and venue to our downtown, because I think I can speak for everyone. I say we absolutely want to see more people coming to our downtown and coming and celebrating and appreciating Ossining. So I think that, you know, I applaud your great efforts and your initiative and your goals. More broadly, but for tonight, I think we just want to talk about a particular date and how that might function and what are the logistics that have to be addressed. So, Christina, maybe you can start by answering some of those questions for us.
So the requested day is June 7th. I don't believe that we have any conflicts at this time. Some of the things that the board has to consider and that it comes under our Corporation Council's purview. There would need to be a license agreement obtained for this, similar to the arrangement we do with the Chamber of Commerce. We would need a sponsoring organization. And then we would have to get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. I know Miguel said they would obtain all the liquor permits and things like that, as Omar is very well aware of, what you need from the health department. But I'd like to understand the needs that you may have with regard to electric and garbage removal, things like that, and what type of temporary facilities will be there, so that we know that people are protected, and how we'll stage them, and a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. But the big thing is the license agreement and the sponsoring organization. And if there's questions on that, our Corporation Council could address that.
Okay. Did you want to talk about?
Oh, sure. I can. It's a fortuitous subject. Christina had asked me to look at this in terms of a charitable organization that had come forward to ask about fundraising in Market Square. So I was already engaged in the research when Miguel's concepts came in, so it's completely applicable here. There is, of course, a prohibition against gratuitously offering public property or money, and so case law is really clear that in this case it's completely acceptable in exchange for a license agreement, a revocable license agreement that clearly establishes the parameters of the use, establishes the indemnity and the insurance that protects you, and also there's a need for you to receive adequate compensation. And that's been defined by case law as at least covering the expenses of the village vis-à-vis the use at that time, and also to ensure that use by the public at large is not unreasonably disrupted. And since this would be for a finite period of a single day, and that period of time it would take to move in and move out, I think that you don't run afoul of that provision, but you would need to have a clear concept of the cost to the village, and you would need to make sure that you're not gratuitously providing services or goods or the use of the space.
So those costs would be trash pickup and police services. Are there other things that would likely to be considered? And do we, are we able to estimate?
It depends on their need, right?
Restrooms.
Power, yeah. So I think, yeah, I think
Sands.
that maybe you could ask Miguel to come in, and we could sit and, actually itemize those things and put a dollar value on it so everyone is clear. I do have a license agreement I've been using in a number of circumstances, and I can certainly adapt it for this, so I could get started on producing a standard form agreement and show it to Miguel, so he knows what he's doing, and I'm sure he is clearly aware that, the food service permits and the liquor permits and the constraints under which he would have to operate, and he's, done his homework on that, which is really, really helpful to the village.
Are these the same requirements that the Portuguese Fair, the Village Fair, and other groups
They're
that
nonprofits.
use the Market Square? Are these the same requirements?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So-
You'd have to talk to Paul, too, right?
If the board is
DPW.
interested in moving forward with this, what we typically do is we meet with the department heads and the event organizers, or the key people involved on the event end, and to help them determine what the needs will be and what we, as a municipality, believe they need to make it safe and comfortable. And we would do that if the board would like us to continue conversation.
Yes, Trustee Hura, you're probably the most experienced in event planning in Market Square, so why don't we hear from you?
Thank you. First and foremost, I definitely want to see this happen. We need more organizations and entities to be able to do events and programming that will bring people downtown. Unfortunately, we don't have a business district that attracts people after 6 p.m. at night, right? A couple of restaurants, but we're not there yet, right? So we
Right.
definitely want to encourage, events and programming to bring people there. And since we actually have the space, it's a good opportunity for us to, keep that going. As far as this particular event, I think that what the village manager, Christina, just said was that once we meet and kind of just see what all the logistical pieces are, the setup time, all the small stuff that seems all small, but it really adds up, right? And then to answer your question earlier, because as you know, prior to my being on the board, I managed a event production company based out of Main Street. So is that all those events are actually managed and funded by nonprofits. So that's why, if a private entity as yourself comes in.
This will be, we have a nonprofit organization called the Alliance for Downtown Ossining, and this organization has been around the village for quite a long time. However, it's been dormant, and that will be the vehicle for this event under the auspices of the Alliance for Downtown Ossining.
Well, that's because it's been dormant. I don't think there's any leadership in position to be able to really partner with right now. So let's put that on one of the things to
Yeah.
discuss if you need to
Right.
have an elite
We're-
partnership.
We're
with a
getting all of the
nonprofit and-
documentation. It is an active New York State chartered organization.
Right.
Okay, and I was on the board, and several other people who are still around are on that board. So,
But we want to the date is coming fast for you to be able
Yeah.
to make everything happen. So
Yeah. we could move the date later, because we were trying to get before the village fair, because a lot of stuff is happening in June.
yeah.
And then we could do it, in July perhaps.
Okay.
If we need more
That
time.
might allow for a little
But
more time to organize.
But I want to know that we can get, before I go down to, I've already spoken to the county and to the State Liquor Authority, And the fees, we'd have to pay out that fees. And so before I go to, lay out the money for that, I want to be pretty sure that we're going to be able to hold the event.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does anybody else want to add any questions?
On the face of it, I think it's a great idea. I think that, I think you definitely would want to work out the details of the lease agreement with us before you obviously make any other commitments to licensing. But that being said, in order to fulfill the lease contract or the lease arrangement, you'll have to provide all the certificates and everything else of the things that you're looking to get. I think this is a great idea. I certainly support it. As long as it meets all the other requirements and it's the same requirements that everybody else are held to that do similar events, I have no objection. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all are in agreement with this. When I first saw this concept, it was floating around a couple months back. I thought it was a great concept. So I think it's a great idea, and I will support it 100%. With all that said, so just to clarify, because you have it here, Market Square, is that just where Market Square is? Just that
Just
small
that one
portion?
spot, yeah.
Okay.
So nobody will be inconvenienced in terms of parking. We don't need the parking function, we need where
space.
the market
Yeah.
actually sets up.
It's something that kind of what Trustee Herrera mentioned before. He did he actually came in front of the board several times when I was sitting here. And it was great, the presentation. I always like his presentation because it came with a diagram, where the tent is going to be located, with all the stuff. So if you can just either provide us with not just for us, but I guess just to understand how big the tent is going to be, and you say there's going to be some vendors now involved in the event as well. So just to have an idea of how much that is going to be laid out and how many people are going to be.
That's all
And I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, that would be something in the discussions that we would ask them to identify who the vendors are, how much space they'll need, the footprint, the plan. As Trustee Herrera recalls, we made it pretty painful in the beginning to get the details straight, so we understood it. She's like,
This is a great idea.
but then it worked out well.
And it's just
Some bumps in the beginning.
I like the
24 by
concept.
24, whatever,
It's
something
just
like that. Yeah.
Space where the stage is.
Yes.
And in front of the stage.
Just a parking.
The paving
area.
stone
the
area.
pavers.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, no-
So Christina, I think you have the sense of the board that we really like the concept, so we would like you to move forward with the department heads and figure out the logistics to see
I don't know
that this
we'll
can.
need, police presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have to, we would defer to the department heads to advise us on what makes sense. And yes,
But
and the chief.
They need a 501c3 sponsor though, right? Don't they?
necessarily.
Not necessarily? What does it have to be?
I'm just gonna actually find out who the entity is and, do the necessary Department of State searches
Okay,
and.
so that's with you.
We
Good.
can do that offline, yeah.
Miguel and the public watching, I just wanted to say that, and it's something that I emailed the board about, and I know that we're going to be proactively finding a way to establish it, but it would have been great if you had a checklist or an instructions about what to present to us tonight, right? So that's something that I've been looking at, and a couple of trustees prior also mentioned it. So it's something that we are going to discuss and hopefully implement for whether you're a nonprofit, you're a church, you're a business, any entity. You actually know how to approach a municipality when planning a public event, what goes into it, right? Because that way you can come in and kind of already have all our answers already straight. You have, already all your T's marked and everything. So it's kind of just a way for us to make sure that we are respecting your time and vice versa, and also making sure that we could actually host more events and programming. So I just wanted to point that out.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Turco. The next item on the agenda is the tertiary claims. Our treasurer, Thomas Warren's here to talk about some large.
Welcome, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Good evening, Mayor Garrity and the members of the Board of Trustees. I want you to know that I was thrilled to see that I have 25 minutes allocated for two items. And I too could have had a PowerPoint presentation tonight, but I'm
You only have 8 minutes
I'm going
left.
to give you the short version to try to get back on schedule.
We have documentation to support everything you say, so we'll be following along. Thank you, sir.
Yes, so as you know, the village uses the town assessor for the tax roll, and the town assessor and the town board have been approving tax certiorari claims on certain parcels. We haven't had any tax certiorari claims so far this year. When we adopted the budget, we thought that the exposure might be $400,000 this year, and then all of a sudden we got hit with 3 tax certiorari claims, 2 of which are substantial. 200 South Highland Avenue is probably better known as the Corsi Tire Properties, and that's 6 years that was settled by the town. And the village cost would be $121,796. And then there's the Scarborough Manor Owners Corporation at 16 Rockledge for 3 years, and that's $108,875. And then Michael Kelly at 45 South Highland Avenue, which I believe is a funeral home. That's a 2-year tax certiorari claims for $5,635, and the total amount would be $236,306. Normally at this time, we would present a bond resolution to help pay for this. We do have appropriations in the budget, but because our estimate was made back in November when we were working on the budget, we wanted to work with the assessor's office again to try to get a better idea of what additional claims might be due for the balance of the year. So we thought we would come back in May with a bond resolution. But in the meantime, we do have to pay these court orders within the 60 days that was on the judgment. So as I said, we have appropriations in the budget. We just have to follow through with Part 2 for a bond resolution later this year.
So just a question. So we're gonna I guess borrow the money short term. Is that the idea? We're just gonna sort of float. We're gonna have to float some money for short term, and then the budget would catch up later on, and we'd pay it off. Or
right now we have the appropriations, and from a cash flow perspective, we have enough money in the bank account to pay these. But we do need, before the end of the year, we do need to actually issue the bond. And even with the bond resolution, if it was adopted now, we generally pool all of our bond resolutions and go to the bond market at one time, which historically has been in November. I'd like to try to move that bonding up to August if I could, to try to get that away from the budget time of the year. So that's a possibility as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll put resolutions on for next week.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and the second part was, as you know, the village audit has been ongoing last week and this week, and one of the schedules that we include in the audit report is a nice summary presentation of the capital projects that were underway during 2014. And last August, by resolution, the village board had actually closed the Lower Main Secor Streetscape Capital Project. And at the time, we were happy that Paul had actually brought this project in under budget. The project budget had stood at $745,000, and the actual cost was $718,661. So it was well below the budget. There was also a $50,000 residual equity transfer to the Pleasantville Road project as well, but I'm coming to you because because the auditors had wanted the capital project budget modified to be reduced to what the actual expenditures were, just so that the budget equals the expenditures on the report. And similarly with the Historic Buildings Markers Capital Project, which is a current ongoing project, Valerie was able to obtain some state aid, and right now the actual amount of revenues received on the project totals $31,112, and we've only amended the budget so far for $29,000, so the auditors asked if I would go to the board and have the project modified so that the project budget equals the amount of the revenues.
Is that the Museum in the Streets project? The historic building
No,
markers?
that's the
I think
the
it-
historic
Okay.
signs,
yes.
right?
Yeah, well, the Museum in the Streets is the pathway
yeah.
that we're
Right,
creating,
that's
correct?
what
Okay, I
the
just want to make sure that I knew the project we're talking about. Great, okay.
Okay, so it's only window
So
dressing.
this is detailed bookkeeping to accurately reflect.
This is window dressing, just so
Yes,
that the
thank you.
auditor report looks nice.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Keep Tom
Very
and Dale
precise, we
out of jail.
appreciate that. Well,
Thank you.
Yes.
that's important too, that's not what this is, but thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is the trustee liaison reports.
All right. Are you eager to start? I see you have your list in front of you.
I am.
Trustee
The coffee's
Ferrera?
kicking in finally. So my first update is for the Chamber of Commerce, and up to date, they've sold 80 vendor spots. This will be the first year that they actually allot for 200, so you'll be seeing a lot more markings this year. That's pretty exciting. They do sell out every year. If you're interested, you can call it 941-0009. The board of directors, and you'll be hearing a little bit about this in more detail at a later time, are in the process of partnering up with the property owners of 2 Church Street to construct a veterans flagpole and memorial on the Church Street side, right across from Sasonero Plaza, and that's being done in conjunction and partnership with the American Legion. So that's a pretty nice project that we'll hear about soon. And as we all heard, there are 3 new board members have come for the past, I would say, 3 meetings to just hear about how we are operating as a village and how they can kind of start a clear channel of communication based off of how they work and how we work and how we can work together. So I think that's pretty important. Tomorrow morning, I look forward to meeting with our downtown manager, Ingrid Richards. I will be discussing a couple of ideas and issues that I've experienced as a resident and as a consumer downtown. You'll later be hearing about that, so I look forward to partnering up with her and the board. I met with a representative from HELP, which is a Hispanic employment labor program at St. Anne's. This is a program where pro bono lawyers meet with employees who have been treated unfairly or not been paid the wages that they were contracted to do. And it was great to hear how the program is thriving, and a lot of people in Westchester kind of want that similar program to happen in other communities. So it's great that it started here. One thing that I don't know if they're doing, and I can see that it may be a touchy subject, is whether you're a day laborer or any employee who is seeking work or gets hired by someone, you don't know a list of local employers who are known not to pay their employees, and that would actually be posted through county, through village. So it's kind of a whole conversation that I'm sure many people will have soon.
Interesting.
And my last report is for Westchester County. County Legislator Catherine Borgia will be having a coffee with your legislator on Saturday, May 2nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. As I said earlier, tomorrow night there's going to be a public forum on family issues beginning at 6:30 p.m. And it's actually a correction. It's not in Greenberg. It's the White Plains Library Auditorium. And they have about 40 sponsoring organizations, including our own Open Door and every safety net or child-related nonprofit will be there. So it's a pretty big event. And I'll be going with my father for the first time this year as a resident, but the Salute to Seniors is coming to the County Center on May 6th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you could visit seniorcitizens.westchestergov.com. I look at it as a day of fitness activities and an expo and food, and it's free to all residents, and it's really a great opportunity for anyone. I would say ages 50 and up, or anyone that's planning.
Being 50 and up.
Thanks, Bob. To really get linked up with reps and programs on a face-to-face basis and see what the process is. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee DeRio.
Yeah. Now, the last time we did these, I highlighted OVAC. And so tonight, I just want to talk a little bit about the revitalization of the Waterfront Vision Committee. What we decided to do is make the committee a little different focus. The people on the committee are the people who actually are either working at or own property at the waterfront. And I'm very pleased, we've got a commitment from John Wunderlich, who has the property north of Chatham Yacht Club. I didn't know there was property north of Chatham Yacht Club until I started this research. Turns out there is. Sandy Mace, who's the immediate past Commodore of Chatham Yacht Club. Lori and Val from the Boathouse Restaurant.
Awesome.
We're very excited they're getting involved in this. Joe DiMarchese from West Philly Marina is on board. And Joe, whose name I can't pronounce, help me, from
Gillespie.
Ginsburg.
Oh, Dick Gillespie.
D. Gillespie.
D. Gillespie.
That's easy for you to
D.
say.
Gillespie?
Yes.
Joe.
Joe's going to be on from Ginsburg, and he was excited about it, which is great. Liz Feldman, who's the current Commodore of the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club. Don Elmendorf, who is a civil engineer who's done a lot of the work on the breakwaters down at the waterfront, and also he is the division commander of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary here. And so he's had business relationships with a lot of these folks down at the river, and he's going to represent the Coast Guard. The only one left to find is Riverkeeper. And I contacted them, but they haven't found somebody to sit on the committee yet, but they intend to. And so we will have all of the stakeholders who are at the river. And I'm excited about this because once these folks are all of a mind, then we can start bringing the other stakeholders, the people who are end users down at the waterfront in as well. So I'm excited about this new concept, this new approach to the Waterfront Vision Committee. And letters are going to go out. I'm hoping to have our first meeting next month.
The one stakeholder, and I think we talked about it, was the parks. Have you
Oh,
spoken to Chris
Chris.
Soy or anybody on his team?
Yes, thank you. Rec Department, I have to talk to Chris. I have not done that yet. Thank you. It fell off my radar.
That's okay, but this time you got the Boathouse Restaurant, so I'm very pleased
did.
that they're on board. That's great.
So,
Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you. Trustee Quesada.
Oh, I thought it was John, but that's okay.
Oh, full surprise.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm going to kind of piggyback what Trustee Herrera said early in regards to help. I was actually very involved in that a couple of years back. I used to go to the meetings and try to help out some of the translation in there, and they do a lot of great work, and they do look for lawyers who would like to donate their free time and a lot of that as well. And I guess that's something that was going back to one of the meetings that we kind of went to, the three of us, in a different different time frame, which is with the one with Neighbors Link, that they were also here, which they also do a lot of work. So they're trying to combine some of that stuff, and they're trying to help how to create with other communities, organizations that we have here in Austin.
Though, if I may comment.
Yeah.
Neighbors Link eliminates the need for help,
That
which
is
is
correct.
even better.
Correct. They have training facilities, they have a whole center and everything else, which I was actually supposed to go there a couple of weeks back. It's just my schedule didn't kind of work out, but I'm in touch with them as well.
Good.
And I want to thank our county legislator from last weekend, where she brought the Hispanic Coalition or Affairs Task Force here to Austin, and it was pretty helpful. I met Yolanda Valencia, and it's something that a conversation, I guess, that we were having, and I think Trustee Herrera was there too. Something I didn't know, something that I was inquired a couple times for different people here in the village of Austin is sometimes they don't have an ID form, and they actually asked me, is like, what can the village of Austin make IDs for us? I was like, yeah, that's a different topic, but I found out that actually the Westchester County has IDs, so you don't have to go to DMV to get an official ID, but you can also get an official ID from Westchester County, and that's some information that I'm supposed to get, and probably just put that in our website, and just sort of like a link into that. Had a couple meetings, unofficial meetings with some of taxi drivers that they called us a while back. We met at the police station in the court area with Lieutenant Sylvester and Pete as well, one of the police officers that are in charge. There were some concerns. We addressing those in some different areas. That they're doing our police department is doing some investigations and some traffic violations that a lot of them that they're doing things, not traffic violations, but something along those lines, that there's going to be an investigation process to do. There's some illegal taxing done in the village. People who are not licensed to be taxi drivers are doing work here in the village as well. So that's something that is an ongoing situation with that, and we're working with the clerk as well, and the IDs. Thank you. We do have, about a year ago, we budget a new ID system for here for the village and for the employees, and that is being produced for the taxi drivers, so they have like an official ID for them, which is
great.
pretty nice to see.
That's getting done.
And they're required to have that on, right?
Correct. They're required to carry that all the time, whenever, well, not all the time, but whenever they're at work. The other thing that I had a brief conversation with Lieutenant Sylvester was, and I know the chief was here, they're actually trying to, with the team of Going Green, they're actually trying to eliminate a lot of the paperwork. Everything's going to be going through, just like we have here, wireless, so to speak, emails, the reports. So they're starting now, right now, in the areas that can eliminate the use of paper as well. So they're going to go green. I don't want to say it 100%, but they definitely a big percentage of that. So the police department is working on that right now. So which is very cool to see. So yeah, so that's
Pete
some of
Carpenter, right?
That's Pete,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Sylvester, and a couple other guys that they work, that they do a lot of the reports, incident reports, things of that nature. Because I know they do. He was telling me that they do a lot of reports to New York State that they have to mail them. So they have the facility to email all the reports, which will save a lot of paperwork itself.
Right.
So that's something that they're actually looking into. I had a brief conversation with that last week. So
Thank you.
that's pretty much it for now.
Thank you. Trustee Codman.
So this weekend is the start of the baseball season here in Ossining.
Yay.
This Saturday is the parade. I will not be here, but it is really the beginning of the recreational season here in Ossining, and I know that the rec department is working hard to get the fields ready and get everything going. It's a great parade and it's a great day. And the rec department's running smoothly. I know Chris is gearing up for the summer camps and getting everything going. That's a big push, and it'll be his first time through. But Chris seems very happy. I've had a number of conversations with him. He's interfacing really well with the Rec Advisory Board and that group. And I think he's going to be trying to formalize things a little bit more around the agendas of the meetings and stuff like that. So I think that's a good step, and working really closely with Connie, the chair. Any moment now, we're going to have a new fire truck deployed. I mean, we have the truck. We're just trying to get through all the. Mostly, it's really the driver training. Making sure we have all the drivers trained and ready to go. Obviously, we had some weather conditions that sort of prevented a lot of the training stuff to take place. As recently as last month, it just wasn't worth risking the truck on an icy road, so they kind of held back. But I think any moment now we're going to have that truck deployed, and that's very exciting to have that vehicle. And it is. I've had a chance to do a walkthrough of it, and it's going to do a lot of great work for us. It's a great piece of apparatus. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing how much you can get in that truck, and that
Yes.
it fits in that firehouse. It's really remarkable. So anyway,
It's your firehouse.
No, I know. No, that was the.
Okay.
You can ask Trustee Codman. That was the whole. We wanted to make
Okay.
sure it fit. A lot of the new apparatus.
Uh-huh.
Gosh. All right.
Okay.
On that.
so so anyway, anyway, a fire truck. So,
Looks
but
great, though.
but anyway, that's there's certainly excitement there, and our fire department continues to do great work.
We had the first meeting of the Arts Committee last night, and it was pretty inspiring. This is a group of really, really smart, creative people. They're really thinking about, about the arts, about how many different artistic, either events or organizations and all that other stuff. And I think we really want to, I think the committee really wants to create a place where all those groups can come together and help support each other and provide vehicle to make people really understand the arts, not only for those that live here in Ossining, but those from the outside. They selected a chair, which is Henry Welt is going to be the chair.
Oh, nice.
And Mike Risco is the vice chair, and Aaron Lehrer is going to be the secretary. And we've put together some communication plan internally, how we can exchange documents and information like that. And we'll have our next meeting in a couple of weeks. We're going to put probably the first few meetings are going to be pretty close together every 2 weeks. We need to come out with a mission statement, and that's something we're hopefully will accomplish in our next meeting. But I'm very excited. Really great group of people, and I think a lot of the things that we talk about Ossining, the big key is that you want to have all kinds of things, and we want to connect the arts with our merchants and with our downtown, and really create this cohesion, so that there's a lot of opportunity for working together. So very exciting about the committee. So thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
report.
All right. I want to thank everybody in the community who has been coming out on Tuesday mornings. This Tuesday was a little bit delayed because we had our big announcement of the new village manager. But then most Tuesdays you can find me right here, pretty much in this room. There's a small office in the back. That's our Board of Trustees office right here at Village Hall at Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. And some weeks it's quiet and I get paperwork done and phone calls made. And some weeks there's a line of people sitting in here. So thank you very much to everybody who's coming out. And if you're not able to come in person, you can always reach me at garrity@villageofossining.org or call Village Hall at 914-941-3554, and the message will get to me, and I'll follow up as soon as I can. Several things have happened in the last few weeks. The one Tuesday that I missed was during spring break because it was a Sustainable Westchester members meeting, and it was very exciting for me because I got to represent the Village of Ossining as the mayor. I've been on the steering committee that brought Sustainable Westchester to where it is today, from being part of the executive board of Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, and it has now grown to represent almost every single municipality in Westchester County. The map has a couple of little dots of people that haven't finished their paperwork yet, but it really is taking hold as such a county-wide nonprofit servicing municipalities. And it was we needed a quorum to be able to make a little change in the bylaws so that it could operate more functionally, and we had several more members represented than we needed. So it was great to see so many municipalities coming out and really being proactive in this group. And they got some feedback from us on what are all of our priorities and what are all of the types of initiatives we want them to be focusing on. And I look forward to bringing back more of them. One of those you've heard me speak about before, and I will tout again, which is the Solarize program. We are part of Solarize Ossining Briarcliff. Our municipality competed with other municipalities to have the opportunity to bring the lower cost solar installations to our property owners, both residential and commercial property owners. This is a public-private partnership between our municipalities, the town of Ossining, and the villages of Ossining and Briarcliff Manor. Nonprofit organizations like Sustainable Westchester and Solarize Westchester, and then the private industry installers. And these installers went through such a thorough vetting program, and I sat on the subcommittee that interviewed them along with our building inspector and representatives from the town and the village of Briarcliff Manor. It was a really in-depth process. So I encourage anybody who's ever thought they might even want to ask a question about solar installations on their property in Ossining or Briarcliff to visit. Just Google, it's solarizeossining.briarcliff.org. and check that out. Most importantly, there's a deadline. You need to sign a contract by June 1st in order to get this pricing. And the great news is we're moving ahead so fast, the price goes down the more people in your community that sign up. We've now gotten to tier 2. So the price just went down for everybody who's signed up already and will sign up by June 1st. So go ahead and learn about that now, please. And we will, Green Ossining is another of our community organizations that is extremely active right now. Their big annual event is, you heard me talk about it earlier, is Earth Day at the Waterfront Park. That will be Saturday, April 18th from 11 to 4. And today was the last day to sign up for a booth. We have more booths than ever, and I don't think that we're going to be extending that offer because right now we're just trying to figure out how to fit everybody and have a great flow for the day. It's going to be full of activities and exhibits and music and food, so definitely come on down for that. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Christina. Sorry, I didn't remember to ask you before we got started. There are terrific opportunities for community members to be involved in committees, just like the one that John was referring to that's brand new with the Arts Committee. One of the short-term committees that we're looking for applicants is the Green Building Guidelines.
Yes.
I know you've received at least some applications.
We received some. We were seeking additional members. Our original deadline passed, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. We left it open because we were hoping there was kind of like a last call.
More.
To get a few more. So if anyone knows anyone who's interested in serving, we'd love to talk to them.
Great. Okay. So the Green Building Guidelines, what we're asking folks to do is it's going to be a committee of community members at large who can express their interest in a letter of interest or resume to sending to Village
To my
Manager.
attention,
Yes.
yeah. cpapes@villageofossiney.org. And if you'd like to just give me a call, my number is 941-3554. And look forward to talking to you about it.
Great. And that's going to be another John liaison project.
Mr. Committee.
So John and I will go ahead and hopefully start setting up interviews and finding some folks to work on that. And the goal that I see for that committee is to take a look at all of the existing Green Building Code guidelines, and there's quite a range in municipalities in the area. We saw 2 very different ones, and there's even more than that. Figure out what this committee would recommend that could function well in the Village of Ossining. So it is quite a task, and we're looking for people with a variety of skill sets and interests, whether you're an environmentalist or a builder or a planner or the legal background, or you understand, there's a lot of skills that could be helpful in this process. So I look forward to being able to interview people very soon, so get your applications in on that. The last thing that I'll mention came up earlier last week. I got to attend for the first time as mayor the PACE Land Use Center's Mayor's Revitalization Roundtable. Yes. And that's a program that the PACE Land Use Law Center started last year. They were originally thinking of it for cities, but they expanded it to some densely populated villages like ourselves. And it was our speaker was the person who runs the Mid-Hudson Region's Economic Development Council. And so we talked a lot about the consolidated funding application and heard a lot of the challenges and successes of different cities and villages like ourselves in that process. And it was a really interesting, highly informed group of people to work with. So it was a pleasure to be there, and I was very pleased that we had a nice team of us there from the Village of Ossining to be able to take back that information, and it meets quarterly. I look forward to attending the next one as well. And is there anything else you wanted to add? Either
our corporation counsel says.
Sure.
We also need to go into executive session.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just need to take a few seconds. I needed some guidance from the board based upon the discussions at your last work session in terms of your microgrids consultants and also your community choice aggregation. I have been speaking at Mike Gordon's request. He actually has sent me to Glenn Weinberg, who's helping me with the CCA information. I believe I'll be able to get a resolution to you. I know Lewisboro passed a resolution recently, so I'm using that and adapting it and talking to Glenn about the process, getting clarification on the necessary decision from Albany on whether there needs to be a permissive referendum. So once I have that set, I can get that resolution back to you. The more key thing and the more timely thing is to encourage you to take a look at the 2 proposed consultants for the microgrid project, because you need to get under contract with those individuals so you can start to get your application together, meet with key stakeholders, and move forward. I was able to follow up, and I did ascertain on your behalf that there is no conflict of interest, that it is a completely wholly owned subsidiary and not related.
Thank you for that email.
So you're in the clear in terms of any connection or conflict with the Booz Allen organization. But as you recall, we had Mike Gordon here, and he gave you the key elements about the 2 consultants that you were considering, that being the Green Energy Corp Community Microgrid consultant, and also with the Booz Allen Group, that this is the New York Prize money that may result in you actually qualifying through the process to actually get a microgrid up and running in your community. So I just needed some direction in terms of that, and I wanted to remind you that you'll need to make a decision on that consultant so we can put that on for resolution and we can get those folks going. And I also wanted to let you know that I'll be coming back with that proposed community choice aggregation resolution probably at your next work session.
Great.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear about the CCA moving forward. As far as considering Booz Allen Hamilton versus, what is it, Green Energy, is that the name of the other one? I had the opportunity to meet with the young man from Booz Allen, and he was very eager and knowledgeable, and it's a huge company with great resources. I haven't had an opportunity, and Christina, I don't know if you have an opportunity to speak with Green Energy. I know that they are themselves a smaller entity, however, their experience is very much in community microgrids, whereas Booz Allen has done similar projects primarily for military installations, but they have a lot of resources, so they are eager to break into this.
Yeah, the Green Energy comes highly recommended, and like you said, Booz Allen is I think is a well-known firm for many aspects of management consulting, but is kind of new to this area and is trying to get their stake their claim in this niche. But the second firm is very highly recommended.
Will this project be something that has great interface with like the building department and the DPW guys? Are they going to be working on this?
There will be
I think
interface with the key staff members.
A bunch of departments.
The first part of this, making the application, is at no cost to you because, of course, this is a project
application.
that's being shared. But staff time, there's a commitment of staff time, and Valerie and DPW and everybody's input will be necessary, and we can move it through the process.
I'd like to hear Valerie and Paul's input on which consultant they think is better. I think that would help us with our decision because they do this work and they interface with these kinds of consultants in their day-to-day work. So I'd like to have them weigh in on this before I want to make a decision.
Okay, in addition to the presentation from Mike Gordon, who gave you the background on both of them, maybe I could even resend the information to you so you can see what they're both, the qualifications of both.
Right,
and then
I want to look at them. I just want to know. I want to know what Paul and Valerie think.
I can get them to respond to you by email.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Then next week, can we maybe have a little, maybe in an old business, ongoing, continuing business
That would be
discussion,
helpful.
and then we can keep it moving without waiting till the next work session?
Yeah,
Good idea.
It would be
All right.
helpful, because
Thank you.
if we can get the authority to execute, then I can get them on board and get.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I don't want
An
to hold it
agreement.
up.
Right, no, I hear you.
For
I hear you.
resolution for next week,
Yeah.
after an update under continuing business, is
Yeah,
that
that's
what I understand?
well, under
Okay.
continuing business. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you think we can actually go, if we go to continuing business, make the decision, a formal deliberation and discussion during continuing business, and then go to resolution once we
Yeah.
fill in that blank?
We could do it right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Great.
believe that would be possible. I'll get the agreements back out to you, and I'll encourage Valerie and
Paul.
Building and Paul to weigh in and let you know.
Yeah, he's right there.
Well, he hasn't looked
Wait,
at
wait
the
a minute.
information, so let's
Yeah,
let him look at it
Well, I'll
first.
talk to the gentleman from Green Energy as well, have a longer conversation with
That'd be
them.
great.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Anything further, Madam Manager?
Ask the board to go into executive session for labor negotiations.
Okay. And, and there is also one personnel of a specific person that
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Then with that, do we need a motion to adjourn to executive session?
I so move that.
On the board? Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Aye. And with that, I thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you will join us next week. We will be back down at the Birdsall-Fagan Courthouse at 8688 Spring Street on Wednesday, April 15th for our regular meeting. And I remind everyone that there are 3 opportunities for the public to speak. First, if you have a community project, organization, announcement that you would like to make, you have 2 minutes to do that at the beginning. If you would like to comment on any of the resolutions that are being discussed at that evening's meeting, you have an opportunity. And then at the end of the meeting, if there's any subject that is of pertinence to the community at large, you are welcome to be recognized as a visitor. So please join us for the legislative session next week, April 15th. Thank you very much.